Can everybody hear me?
So,
If we can take a seat and quiet down, we're going to start the formal portion of the hearing. And is everybody able to hear me okay? By a show of hands,
That's good.
who here is not affiliated with one of the parties? And by that I mean not affiliated with Spire, the commission staff, public counsel, or any of the interveners.
Can you define what you mean by affiliated, sir?
No, I'm going to leave it as is. Thank you for that. If you've got a cell phone, please be sure it's on vibrate or silent. Do I have a court reporter? Thank you very much. And let's go on the record. Good evening. It's October 12th, 2022 at, well, that's not right, at 7:15 p.m. and we are at the St. Louis Community College Florissant Valley, and I believe I said that right, in Missouri. And the Missouri Public Service Commission has set aside this time for a local public hearing in the file captioned GR 2022-0179, which is a general rate case, which is in the matter of Spire, Missouri Incorporated, doing business as Spire's request for authority to implement a general rate increase for natural gas service provided in the company's Missouri service areas. My name's John Clark. I'm the regulatory law judge presiding over this local public hearing today. Now, the Missouri Public Service Commission regulates the rates charged by investor-owned utility companies in Missouri to ensure that those rates are just and reasonable. And the commission also regulates the quality of service and the safety of operations of investor-owned utilities. The commission is made up of 5 commissioners. The chairman of the commission is Ryan Silvey, and commissioners are Scott Roop, Maida Coleman, Jason Holzman, and Glenn Kolkmeyer. The commissioners are appointed by the governor to fixed terms and confirmed by the Senate. The commissioners employ a staff of engineers, accountants, attorneys, financial analysts, and other specialists in the field of utility regulation. Now, with me today are Commissioners Coleman, Holzman, and Kolkmeyer. They are participating via WebEx and are listening to your comments here today. Commissioners, would any of you like to make any opening comments? Okay, hearing.
Yes, Judge. Mr. Holzman. Go ahead, Mr. Commissioner Holzman. This is Kolkmeyer.
Yeah, I just want to thank everybody for coming out tonight. It does matter. It makes a difference, and we will be listening, and we do appreciate your time. Thank you, Judge.
Thank you, Commissioner. And the commissioners who are not here, because this is being taken by a court reporter, will have an opportunity to read the transcript later and see your comments. I'll also tell you before you leave a way to make additional comments, or if you know somebody who wasn't able to be here tonight and would have liked to have made comments, you can tell them additionally. Now, as I indicated before, a court reporter is transcribing this hearing. And so what I'm going to do at this time is I'm going to ask counsel to enter their appearance for the record, starting with Spire, Missouri.
Good evening, Your Honor. Matt Applington on behalf of Spire, Missouri, 700 Market Street, St. Louis, Missouri, 63101.
On behalf of the commission staff, and I think we're having a mic problem. I didn't hear you so well, and I don't know if anybody else could.
My fault.
Do you want to give it another try?
Yeah, can the court reporter hear me? Very, very good. Matt Applington on behalf of Spire, Missouri, Inc., 700 Market Street, St. Louis, Missouri, 63101.
Thank you, Mr. Applington. And from the commission staff?
Yes, on behalf of commission staff, Kurt Stokes at 200 Madison Street, Jefferson City, Missouri, and with me is Carolyn Kerr, senior counsel. Her name is Carolyn with a C, Kerr, K-E-R-R.
Thank you, Mr. Stokes. Ms. Kerr? For the Office of the Public Counsel?
John Kleiser on behalf of the Missouri Office of the Public Counsel. My contact information can be found in the record.
Thank you, Mr. Kleiser. Are there any interveners or other counsel present that I have not called?
Yes, thank you, Your Honor. Appearing on behalf of the Consumers Council of Missouri, my name is John B. Kaufman. My address is on the record. Thanks.
Mr. Kaufman, thank you. Anybody else? Okay, I have a rather lengthy list of people that would like to provide comments to the commission today, and that's great. It's nice to see that the public is engaged and interested in what's going on at the commission. Now, for those who would like to make comments today, I'm going to call the name listed on the sign-up sheet in the order they appear. Now, when I call your name, would you please come down to the front in front of the microphone. At that time, because there is a court reporter transcribing this, I'm going to ask you to state and spell your name for the record. Then I'm going to swear you in, and I'm going to give you an opportunity to offer your comments to the commission. Now, there's, as I indicated, a rather large number of people who want to offer comments tonight. So I'm going to ask that you keep your comments to less than 5 minutes. If you start to get repetitious about certain things, I may stop you and move on to the next person. But so everybody has an opportunity who wants to offer a comment to the commission, I'm going to ask that you keep your comments as brief as possible. Also, after you've made your comments, please remain standing at the microphone until you've been excused, because the commissioners may have questions for you, or I may have questions that I want to ask you. If the attorneys have questions that they wish to ask at any time, if they will flag my attention and let me know. Now, the commission and the commissioners will not be able to answer any of your questions today, myself included, and that's because they have to remain partial until after evidence is presented at the evidentiary hearing. If you have questions, please speak to the representatives of the company, the commission staff, or the Office of the Public Counsel. Also, please be polite and courteous to everybody who's speaking today and treat them as you would like to be treated. Okay, with that in mind, I'm going to call the first person who wants to, and I'm going to apologize. There's a lot of names here, and I'm going to butcher quite a few of them. Please correct me if I get the pronunciation of your name wrong, and I mean no offense by it. Gwendolyn Gobschel?
My name is Gwendolyn Cogshell.
Cogshell, I apologize. At least we're doing it out the door, right?
Right. You want me to spell it?
Would you please state your name again and spell it for the record?
It's Gwendolyn Cogshell. It's Gwendolyn, Cogshell, Cogshell.
And do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give at this local public hearing is the truth?
I do.
Okay. And what would you like to tell the commission today?
Well, I got a number of concerns, but I'll just take two. I just got a card from Mr. David Williams. He's over the pipeline management. What's happening all over the city is that they're digging up the streets and they're leaving these big square, holes in the street. Now, when Lyda Cruson was the mayor, she had a contract with Spire to do blacktop after Spire had came in and dug up the street. She was supposed to come over and blacktop, which she's not doing. She didn't do. So now you have these big old square blocks, usually on the south side of the street, and there are veins coming out, and they're creating like potholes all over the city. And they're still doing it, and they haven't they haven't worked it out with the current administration, it wasn't their responsibility, but it's a problem with us. My problem is, why did they take out the thermostat? Why did they take that outside? Why did they take that outside and put it on from the inside and put it on the outside? They said it was more convenient for maintenance purposes, but I lived in my house for 30 years and they've never had a problem of getting in. So they took the thermostat out, put it on the outside, took it a $1.49 can of spray paint and sprayed it. And they doing all this work for what? I think it's just to keep, it's in the infrastructure cost, but I think it's to keep employment, number one. And the last thing I want to talk about is my cost of my bill. My bill was $53 last year. This time it was $53.78. They charged me $58.80 to deliver $53 worth of gas, and I noticed that this is not a flat rate. If my bill last year, my highest bill was $345. If the actual usage was $245, they charged me $160 to deliver $280 worth the gas, and they charging me this customer charge of $22. And when I called customer service, they told me the $22 was maintenance on the meter, and I'm sorry, it wasn't the thermostat. Can I change that in the record? They took the meter from the inside and put it on the outside, not the thermostat, the meter. And they said it was customer service for the meter, but I've never seen anybody come to my house to maintenance any type of meter in the time that it's been outside. So I just feel like that the problem is with the delivery charge. Why is the delivery charge so high? I think the delivery charge is where Spire is making their money off the delivery charge, and I just think it's ridiculously high. If my gas bill is $245, I expect to pay some type of fee, but not a certain percentage. And then they have different rates for the east part of Missouri and the west part of Missouri. It's different rates, and I don't understand why that is. Although we had somebody explain it, I still don't understand why that is. So that's all I want to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Can you stay for just a second? And thank you for clarifying the difference between the meter and thermostat. That makes a lot more sense to me now. I appreciate it. Are there any questions from the commission? I have no questions.
No question, Judge.
I have no questions at this time. Thank you for your
Thank
comments.
you, thank
If
you.
you have questions that you feel that the company did not answer during the Q&A portion, you might consider contacting the company with those specific questions. Okay.
Hey, Judge, this is Commissioner Holzman.
Yes, Commissioner.
Would you share the contact information for the PSC for those in the room who decide not to testify tonight but would like to make a comment on the record?
Yes, at the end of the hearing, I will offer a way for people to offer comments either through public counsel or through the Commission's website.
Thank you, Judge.
Thank you, Commissioner Holzman. Thank you for bringing that to my attention. Next up, I have Glenn Burley. Mr. Burley, good evening. Would you state your name and spell it for the record?
Yes, my name is Glenn Burley. That's Glenn. Last name Burleigh. And I work for the Equal Housing Opportunity Council. We're the St. Louis metropolitan area's fair housing enforcement nonprofit. We also do a lot.
Can I get you to raise your right hand to be sworn before you start?
Yeah.
Thank you. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give at this local public hearing is the truth?
I certainly do.
Thank you. I'm sorry to interrupt. Please go ahead.
Okay. Yeah. So, like I said, my name's Glenn. I work for Equal Housing Opportunity Council. We're the area's fair housing enforcement nonprofit. Part of our job outside of fair housing enforcement is helping tenants that are behind in their bills on various things and getting rental assistance. And the percentage of our clients that come in that have significant arrears on top of their rental arrears that are going to make it hard for them to avoid eviction. Because if your gas gets cut off, that can be a reason for eviction, right? So what I'm saying is that we see lots and lots of people already that are way behind in their bills, and frankly, an 11% increase on this. And as commissioners have mentioned, this has nothing to do with gas prices, which are projected to go up, right? So the actual gas prices that they're paying coming down the pipeline are projected to go up as well. So the increase that they're asking for now isn't even the total increase that most consumers should be expecting in the next couple of years. So we're just asking that the commission deny them this exorbitant increase in rates. Thank you.
Thank you. Could you, any questions from the commission? I have no questions either. Thank you very much for your time, and thank you for your comments. Next, I have Danielle Spradley. Ms. Spradley, would you please state your name and spell it for the record?
My name's Danielle Spradley. It's DanielleSpradley.
And would you raise your right hand to be sworn? Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give at this local public hearing is the truth?
I do.
And what would you like to tell the commission today?
Dear members of the Public Service Commission, thank you for convening this hearing. My name is Danielle Spradley, and I serve as the Outreach Director for Congresswoman Cori Bush. I am grateful to testify this evening on behalf of the Congresswoman in Missouri's 1st District. Make no mistake, access to affordable and clean energy is a human right, and far too often it is a matter of life and death, especially in extreme cold winter months like we see in Missouri. We cannot keep forcing our most marginalized communities, those with low incomes, our elders, families with small children, and so many others to choose between eating or having heat, between affording life-saving medications or keeping their children warm at night. And what's worse is that the burden of high energy costs is not equally felt. It's Black and brown people and families across St. Louis who will be stretched to the brink by this exorbitant rate hikes. And it comes at a time when resources are already thin because of rising food prices, transportation costs, and stagnant wages. Utility companies like Spire must do better, yet they're refusing to do so by asking for a raising cost on St. Louis families. Year after year, Spire's imposed rate increases and put an undue financial burden on those who can afford these hikes the least. All of this happened while Spire took in record earnings. Just last year, it was reported that Spire's CEO received a compensation of $5.6 million, a 26% pay increase from the 12% pay increase she received in 2019. In a country where widening and income inequality is commonplace, this might make sense. But in a society where utilities are guaranteed as a fundamental human right, and we believe people should be able to have their materials needs met, it's immoral and outrageous that this company is profiting off the backs of communities like ours, forcing people, elders, and children to freeze in the dead of winter because they are unable to afford exorbitant utility bills. It's not just the cost, it's not the cost of service, and it cannot and should not be tolerated. Last year, as a part of our office's work on the House Committee on Oversight and Reform, Congresswoman Bush led the effort and asked for a public correction from the federal agency Regulatory Commission, FERC, after Spire's misleading campaign threatening to shut off heat for St. Louisans. The Congresswoman in our office heard from so many families afraid that they wouldn't be able to stay warm last winter. That is no way to live, and as someone who has experienced utility shutoffs herself, the Congresswoman refused to stay silent. She spoke up for St. Louis just as we're doing today, to say we cannot put profits over people's lives, we cannot prioritize dangerous pipelines over the health and safety of our community. On behalf of Congresswoman Bush, it is of utmost importance that these opportunities for public input are priorities, and we are glad to see so many people out this evening. Thank many of you. We firmly disagree with Spire's decision to ask for raised utility prices for our St. Louis community members and are calling on the PSC to act in the best interest of our communities. Thank you.
Any questions from the commission? I have no questions. Thank you for your comments. Catherine Kritz. Would you please state and spell your name for the record?
I'm Catherine Kreitz. It's spelled Kathryn-Kryts.
And would you raise your right hand to be sworn? Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give at this local public hearing is the truth?
I do.
And what would you like to tell the commission this evening?
Thank you so much to the Missouri Public Commission for holding these public hearings and giving me the opportunity to speak on this case that affects me and my family. It's so important that members of my community get the option to have their voices heard on matters that affect them, and we all really appreciate your time. My name is Catherine Kreitz, and I live in O'Fallon, Missouri. Spire's rate increase proposal comes at a time that is so financially troubling to so many people, a time when young people like myself, who are a lot of us already strapped with student debt, are coming to terms with the fact that the cost of living is barely affordable. And I'm one of the lucky ones. The rest of my family is not so lucky and cannot afford their expenses. My sister, who barely makes over minimum wage, comes over to my house to eat some of my food because she struggles to pay for her own. My parents are retired and on a fixed income, and inflation has been particularly unforgiving to the retired. And instead of taking my help, my parents dig themselves into more debt to pay for their dental care and medical care when Medicare does not fully cover it. My parents are in their 60s and 70s and have over $100,000 of debt that they will most likely carry to their graves. I'm here to speak for my sister and all the young people in her situation, especially those not fortunate enough as my sister to have a family member they can depend on for food and knew Spire's rate increase would cause them to sacrifice even more. And I'm here to speak for my parents and to speak for all retired people who already can't afford to survive on their fixed income, and who certainly can't afford a price hike from a gas company that already has very comfortable profits. I remember very specifically getting a letter from Spire last winter telling us that we needed to support their pipeline or risk gas shutoffs. I remember being very afraid when I got that letter. I remember how scared it was that my family might freeze to death that winter, and I remember coming to terms with that reality and trying to find a way that we would survive, like staying with a friend's house in the area whose house had electric heating. It was terrifying. Spire knew what they were doing when they sent that letter. They wanted us to be afraid. They did not send that letter for our safety. They sent it because they knew that they held our lives in our hands, and that if we feared for our lives, we would have no choice but to take their side and help them secure their gas empire and secure their business and profit increases for years to come. This case is no different. They know that they still hold their lives in their hands, and they know as a gas monopoly in the area that if they raised the rates, we would pay it to avoid freezing, even if it means sacrificing other essentials. We cannot continue to let Spire to take advantage of us. Please vote no on Spire's proposed rate increase. Thank you so much.
Any commissioner questions? I have one question for you. You said you received a letter from Spire asking that you support the pipeline. When did you receive that?
I want to clarify that it wasn't asking to support the pipeline. It was just saying that that if they didn't get support for the pipeline, that there would potentially be gas shutoffs. I received it, I believe, last December in 2021. I'm not sure the exact date.
Thank you for your comments.
Thank you.
Barbara Robinson. Ms. Robinson, would you please state and spell your name for the record?
My name is Barbara Robinson, and my first name spelled B-A-R-B-A-R-A, Robinson, R-O-B-I-N-S-O-N.
And would you raise your right hand to be sworn? Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give at this local public hearing is the truth?
Yes.
What would you like to tell the commission this evening, Ms. Robinson?
Well, to whom it may concern, you're telling me that Spire is going to raise our gas prices? I just don't understand. I am a school teacher, and I have 3 grandchildren and a retired husband. I don't get food stamps because they say I make too much money, which I don't, to take care of all those kids. So gas prices going up, and I would have to choose between buying food, and with food prices going up, I have to choose between buying food and paying bills. This price increase is a burden on me, and if the gas prices go up, I just don't know what's going to happen, because the last winter we had high gas bills.
Can you say that last part again? I had a hard time hearing.
I said if the gas prices go up, it's going to be hard for me to pay bills because my husband's on a fixed income.
Thank you, Ms. Robinson. Any questions from the commission? I have no questions. Thank you for your comments. Sheila Davis. Ms. Davis, would you say and spell your name for the record?
My name is Sheila Davis, S-H-E-I-L-A-D-A-V-I-S.
And would you raise your right hand to be sworn? Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give at this local public hearing is the truth?
Yes, I do.
And what would you like to tell the commission this evening?
Good evening. My name is Sheila Davis, a senior citizen and a resident of Fountain Park, living in the house that my grandmother bought in 1940. It has been 6 generations of my family there. I have been in my home. I have used coal heat, oil heat, and now gas heat. I need repairs to restore my home, but my utility bills are so high, I cannot afford it. Being on a tight budget, it's like energy versus basic needs. I am 70 years old, a single homeowner, and still working a full-time job. Employed by the city of St. Louis for 18 years, I'm afraid to retire because I will not be able to or have enough income to pay all my bills. So it's all on me. Currently working hard, informing my community, and trying to keep and maintain my property, it would hurt if there was an increase in utility rates. I may have to move out of my home that I have lived in most of my life. I grew up there. Take in consideration what an increase in utility rates would do. I love my home, my community, and the people that live in it. On behalf of the Fountain Park and Lewis Place Steering Committee, this is my energy burden story.
Any questions from commissioners? I have no questions. Thank you, Ms. Davis. Chris Wilcox? Would you please state and spell your name for the record?
Yeah, Chris Wilcox, ChrisWillcox.
And do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give at this local public hearing is the truth?
Yes.
Please give us your comments.
Good evening. My name is Chris Wilcox. I am the Mutual Aid and Policy Associate for Red Circle, a nonprofit organization that serves and advocates for residents of North St. Louis County. I am here because we oppose the proposed rate hike that will hurt our poorest and most vulnerable neighbors the most. Many policy decisions do this, but it's rare to find a possible outcome with such perfect precision could afflict the afflicted and comfort the comfortable. Raising utility rates would be a grievous injury to our poorest neighbors, still struggling to maintain housing at the worst possible time. Most of us have had to make sacrifices after the onset of COVID-19 in 2020. Spire is one of the few who have not, because people need heat to survive whether they can afford it or not. While I was still trying to scrape together for my own rent and utilities that year on Grubhub income, I started speaking directly to neighbors who needed help as part of St. Louis Mutual Aid. Easily the most frequent need was financial assistance to be able to maintain their housing. With so many people having lost incomes, they went into debt for rent and then in utility bills, and have had precious little help catching back up. I will never forget what it felt like taking calls from neighbors in need in the winter of 2020, when all the public assistance from the CARES Act had been expended, leaving us with nothing to offer. Though we act like COVID-19 is gone, it emphatically is not. This is particularly the case for households that include people who are immunocompromised, some of whom were working prior to COVID, but the risk today remains far too grave. At a Red Circle, the calls we get for help are much the same. People are struggling to afford food, rent, and utilities. That's become more apparent since we started holding clinics to assist families applying for federal rental, mortgage, and utility assistance. Between all our volunteers, we've met with families for this purpose 54 times this year, and these encounters represent at least 95 people. Overwhelmingly, these are families with children. Help with utilities is the single most frequent need, as people who don't have enough income have to prioritize rent to keep from being evicted and becoming homeless, or prioritize food to keep families from being malnourished. 2 weeks ago, I got a call from a mother with 2 infants in her home because her utilities were being shut off. She was already applied for federal assistance, but the wait times are getting longer from the massive demand. She has been unable to restore her utilities because she has already asked nearly every local charity, and the funds are just not there. It has always been strange to me that the profits have been so consistently prioritized for government support relative to the lengthy and painful process people must go through to get help just to survive. Very few businesses have a guaranteed profit margin. Fewer still is more than 10% for a service that nearly every household must purchase in some form. Rate increases may not be felt much for households that are doing fine, but the pain is felt most acutely by households that have the least to spare. Because of thousands of dollars in medical and dental bills, unfortunately not uncommon for households, I myself have had to put rent on the credit card, incurring extra fees because there's not enough in my account to cover it at the start of the month. Low-income families struggle the most with medical bills because of their social determinants of health that coincide with poverty. All of it amounts to what is more than a modest family income can bear. Utilities are a public service, and in this case, the government at least has the ability to decide how much Spire gets to profit. Spire is doing just fine, and as long as it keeps cutting off vital services for families and children, it doesn't need to squeeze that much more from the rest to pad its bottom line. Thank you.
Any questions from commissioners? You have a question, Mr. Applington?
Yes, thank you so much for coming and sharing your story. The woman that you gave the example of with the 2 infants, and you said that her utilities were cut off. Did that include gas?
I believe so.
Okay. Would you be able to share her contact information with the community services folks in the back so we can assist?
Sure.
Thank you.
I have no questions for you. Thank you for your comments. Fran Bonham. Would you please state and spell your name for the record?
Hi, I'm Frances Bonham, Francis Bonham.
And Ms. Bonham, would you raise your right hand to be sworn? Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give at this local public hearing is the truth?
I do.
And what would you like to tell the commission this evening?
First, thank you for being in St. Louis in person. As nervous as I am, I don't want to do a Zoom call. When I was still a teenager, I had bad experience using a credit card and got myself into some trouble. Once I resolved that issue, I decided I'd never get another credit card. Since then, I've only ever used cash, checks, and finally a debit card. I pay all my bills in full and on time each month. I tried to never run up a bill that I can't pay right now. To help with that, I have my utilities put on budget billing, and that helps because it helps me to judge how much I'm going to owe each month, and that way I can be sure to be able to pay those bills in full and on time. This means I'm hyper aware of how much gas and electric I use each month. During the winter, I do what I can to not even turn on the heat. I routinely wear a shirt, a t-shirt, and at least one sweater. I wear socks with my slippers. I sleep under at least 3 blankets and actually use a hot water bottle to heat the sheet before I get into bed. And I cover the windows because I rent my apartment and the insulation is almost non-existent. I religiously sign up for LIHEAP each winter, and that does help a lot. And because I'm so careful, I'm able to pay my bills on time, in full, every month. This past summer, I was sitting in front of a fan checking to see if the heat index was over 100 because that's when I allow myself to turn on the air conditioning. And a funny thing occurred to me. This year, I had one of those birthdays that ended in 0, and it forced me to realize that I am now officially an old person. We all know the elderly are more susceptible to weather-related deaths, and I was thinking how stupid it would be if I were to be one of those people who were found dead in their apartment from a heat stroke when there was a working air conditioner available that just wasn't turned on. I didn't want to be that person, so this summer I decided that I'd keep the air conditioner on an extra day or so, and I edged the thermostat down just a little so the room didn't have to be quite so hot before the air conditioning kicked on. I use my heat a little differently. I have the heat turned on all the time in winter, but I set the thermostat so that it only comes on when the room reaches a certain temperature. Consequently, I set it so that it rarely ever turns on. Now, this old person is contemplating the upcoming winter. I had thought maybe I would set my thermostat to a degree or 2 lower to be just a little warmer and budget a little more for the gas. This rate case is about raising how much I'll have to pay in full and on time for my gas use. This is on top of everything else costing more right now. I think it's an awful time to ask for a rate increase, but it's unconscionable to ask for such a large increase when we all are hurting so much. I'm on a fixed income, and my annual Social Security cost of living increase is nowhere near the 11% that Spire is asking for. I already live very frugally to keep within my budget, which means I'm already making sacrifices to be able to pay my bills in full and on time. I really don't see where I'm going to be able to economize further to pay this large increase in my monthly gas bill. Thank you.
Any commissioner questions? I have no questions. Thank you for your comments. and I apologize if I butcher this, I'm just having a little difficulty reading it. Miad Tier. Would you please say and spell your name for the record?
Sure, it's Mia Turner.
Hold on one second.
I think the mic went out, so wait just a second and we'll get that taken care of.
Okay. Hi, I'm Mia Turner, M-I-A-T-U-R-N-E-R.
Okay. And would you raise your right hand to be sworn? Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give at this local public hearing is the truth?
Yes.
Ms. Turner,
I'm
what
here
would-
to testify about women that I work with. I work with a lot of prenatal postpartum moms. I have 2 women in particular on my caseload because I work for a non-for-profit, and this rate increase would badly hurt them because the 2 women that I'm speaking of, I was speaking with them at a visit, and they just got out of the hospital with having their babies, and one of them don't even know why her gas bill was so high when she wasn't even at home to really be using it. She was in the hospital, and then with the unpaid maternity leave that a lot of these companies are inflicting on these moms, you know, they don't even get paid when they're on maternity leave. They got to fight for it. So therefore, their utilities are going up. They're not at work. They have to take be on maternity leave for about 6 weeks, and then they can't pay their bill, and then they got to decide on, if I'm about formula, especially with the formula shortage and Pampers and resources for their babies, how they're going to afford their utility. So this utility rate hike will really, really hurt a lot of prenatal and postpartum mothers.
Any questions from commissioners? I have no questions. Thank you, Ms. Turner. Shirley Ferguson? Ms. Ferguson, would you please say and spell your name for the record?
I'm sorry, say that again, sir.
Would you please say and spell your name for the record?
Yes, my name is Shirley, S-H-I-R-L-E-Y, Ferguson, F-E-R-G-U-S-O-N.
And Ms. Ferguson, do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give at this local public hearing is the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. Please tell us whatever you would like to tell us.
Okay. My name is Shirley Ferguson, and I am a senior citizen and resident of St. Louis County. But before I start my testimony, I would like to take the opportunity to thank all the commissioners for allowing us to attend and hear our stories as to our thoughts on the increase that Spire is selecting. I'm sorry, not selecting, but requesting. I want to say that, first of all, last year I was enrolled in a program through Spire called the Spire Payment Partner Program that was designed to help me stay in control of my utility bill, which would be the Spire. Well, in August of this year, I received a letter from Spire, from that particular program, telling me that I had graduated and that I successfully completed the program and I would be put on a budget plan. Now, that's the first that I heard of that in terms of information from them saying I'm no longer on the program. That was a shocker. But even with tonight and what I heard, it stunned me that some representatives from Spire said that they were going to increase the program. Okay, you're going to increase the program. I'm being cut off, number one. And then secondly, you're asking for an increase. That's a double whammy. You're taking my credits away from me, and you're also requesting an increase. That's one step from being hilarious to the point that you want to cry. I'm on a fixed income. I have had 4 years 3 years consecutively of serious illnesses. I've had 2 surgeries requiring body parts, if you will. And the next incident, the first one was serious surgery in 2019. 2020, a year later, I had the second surgery on my other femur. And then the third year, which was 2020, I was back in the hospital for another condition. I have increased medical expenses. I have increased doctor's visits, sometime testing or whatever. I'm not going to go into that, but I want to say this. This is not a good time for seniors or anybody else to have to look at a rate increase. Cost of living has expense. Other expenses, medical expenses. I have a lot of medical expenses like a lot of other people do. But the issue is the timing is wrong. And I am totally against increase in the rate, and especially when it's not about the gas. That's another mind blower. It is not about the cost of gas. My food is high, my medical is higher, there are other expenses that are higher that are needed for living, and you guys are talking about an increase, and it's not about the gas. And I speak for myself, because I can tell my story better than anybody else. But I want you to know there are other senior citizens that I am involved with, people from my church, people from a couple of organizations that I belong to. And when we talk, those are some of the main things we'll talk about. How we're going to make it. How are we going to make it? The things that we need are things for our livelihood. We're not trying to go out and do other things that people want to do, and that's fine. I have no problem with that. We're trying to live. And for you guys to come to us when everything that it takes to live is going up is utterly ridiculous, and I am against it, and I'm asking the commission to listen to my story, because I can tell it better than anybody else, but also know that there are other stories from seniors who are going through some of the same issues that I know. It's nothing what I heard other than out of their mouths. And I'm asking you to take the time and not agree at all to this insane increase that Spire wants. Thank you.
Any questions from commissioners? I have one question for you. I'm familiar with the budget billing program. You had indicated, and I'm sorry, you said it faster than I could write it down, you had graduated from a different program through Spire that was being expanded, you said. What's the name of that program?
The name of the program is it is Spire Payment Partner Program. I was in the program a year, and when my year was up, they sent me a letter telling me I had graduated and that I was basically no longer in the program. I would not be getting those credits. Those credits helped. They helped a lot. And now they've taken the credits away, and they're also asking for an increase. That's a double whammy. And I, along with anybody else that may be involved, and I'm not saying that they are, I don't know how I'm going to do it. I just don't know how. I'm going to have to sacrifice something that it takes for me to live, be it medicine or food or another necessity for life, to try to make that sacrifice. So what am I going to do? I got a mountain of hospital bills for over 3 years, 2 of them surgeries. That's got to be paid. I'm doing what I can, but it's not much. I'm almost being sued, to tell you the truth. But anyway, that's just the way life is. And I have to make sacrifices to live. They can make sacrifices for something that's not attributed to gas.
Mr. Applington.
Yes, just a quick question. Thank you so much. Have you looked into whether you would be able to get back on the payment partner program or the medical registry program?
I just got the letter in August, like I said. But the way the letter is written, it's like you're off. I mean, we're going to put you on the payment plan. They didn't ask me to reapply. They just told me I was going to be put on the payment plan.
I understand. Please don't leave without talking to our customer support reps in the back. You can get back on the program, and there's some other programs that might be able to assist you.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Ms. Ferguson, thank you for your comments.
You're welcome, Your Honor.
Is it William Wallace? Did I say that right?
Yes, you did.
Would you please say and spell your name for the record?
My name is William Wallace, W-I-L-L-I-A-M, Wallace, W-A-L-L-A-C-E.
And do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give at this local public hearing is the truth?
I do.
And what would you like to tell the commission?
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. My name is Bill Wallace, and I'm the Executive Director of Missouri Veterans Endeavor.
Say that again, please. I'm sorry.
I am the Executive Director of Missouri Veterans Endeavor, or our acronym is MOVE, M-O-V-E. We are a nonprofit that provides housing, case management, therapeutic services, and attachment to needed resources for veterans and their families experiencing homelessness here in the St. Louis region. I'm also an executive committee member for the St. Louis County Continuum of Care of Homeless Service Providers. I'm a veteran myself and a former Missouri Veterans Commissioner. I am testifying today on behalf of my veteran peers who are far less fortunate than myself, as well as for all of our St. Louis neighbors who are themselves experiencing homelessness, feel marginalized or unheard, and who find themselves financially challenged during these exceedingly challenging times. My thoughts tonight also reflect those of my peers in homeless service provision across the St. Louis region. We feel very strongly that the 11+% rate increase proposed by Spire for the supply and distribution of natural gas products is not only unwarranted, but it will be a cruel and harsh contributor to our region's growing number of people, families, and children entering homelessness. During the past 2.5 years, our region's citizens have been forever changed from COVID and the ripple effects of its contributing factors, which include loss of jobs, unstable income, mental and physical health strains, equity issues impacting underserved and under-recognized communities, the placements and then lifting of moratoriums on evictions and utility disconnections, and a great deal of uncertainty as to what may still lie ahead. All of those factors have contributed to an increase of 25 to 35% across the St. Louis region, including surrounding counties, in the number of people who are experiencing homelessness today. You couple that with the fragile state of the economy, the increase in fuel prices across the board, inflated prices for food and essentials, and the serious lack of affordable housing, and we are finding more and more of our neighbors homeless, living on the streets, in their cars, or in unsafe structures not meant for human habitation. A huge and generational contributor to homelessness is utility debt and utility insecurity. If an eligible person is unable to attain utilities in his or her name, then they are unable to secure a lease or certainly a mortgage on their own home. The great majority of our neighbors experiencing homelessness have this utility insecurity. For example, virtually all of the homeless veterans and their family members who live at our veteran community in St. Louis County enter our program and permanent housing opportunity with utility debt, including debt owed to Spire. Our organization pays their utility bills. They enter into payment plans with Spire. They pay us back when they are able, and we also seek private direct financial assistance grants to help them pay their debt and their bills to the hopeful point where they can place their utilities in their own names, perhaps build up their own credit, and so that when they move on from our program to the greater community, they are able to get those utilities in their own names that they must have. Now, this is just a small snapshot. What our financially challenged neighbors or those experiencing homelessness face every single day. We believe that Spire's proposed rate increase is entirely financially driven. That's what we as homeless service providers feel and believe, as do our neighbors. We heard about the compensation packages. We talk about common stock dividends being increased over the years, and we talk about the fact that they want a higher profit margin. This is something that we believe. We live in such fragile and uncertain times. What we do know that is concrete and for certain is that based on our region's homeless management information system, we have seen an increase from 1,700 to 2,400 homeless individuals and families in the past year alone. And that is just in St. Louis City. We know for a fact that winter is coming and is predicted to be harsh. We know for certain that those who still have homes and pay their Spire bills, that many will have to make choices about whether to pay their Spire bill, maybe pay their electric bill, or pay for food or clothing or medical expenses. Many will be unable to pay their bills, will accrue more debt, which will compound, or even worse, have their Spire services disconnected. They will lose their housing, and they will be subjected to the uncertainty as to how to keep themselves, their families, and their children safe, secure, and warm. So many of our neighbors do not have viable choices, but the executives and board of Spire do. We are asking you to do the right thing with the right choice. Don't increase your natural gas rates. Work to help our neighbors, your community, remain safe, warm, and secure. Help us end homelessness and the pending public health crisis, which is on the horizon, and create reasonable payment plans and create another moratorium on the disconnection of utilities. Thank you very much.
Any commissioner questions? I have no questions. Thank you for your comments, Mr. Wallace.
Thank you.
Brittany Kiefer? Ms. Kiefer, would you say and spell your name for the record?
Brittany, Brittany, Kiefer, Kiefer.
And Ms. Kiefer, do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give at this local public hearing is the truth?
I do.
And what would you like to tell the commission?
Good evening. My name is Brittany Kiefer. I am a St. Louis City resident and a full-time student working towards my Master of Social Work. In school, I have spent much time studying racial inequity in St. Louis and the specific impact of unaffordable housing costs on racial wealth inequity. I'm calling on Missouri Public Service Commission to consider the impact of Spire's proposed rate increase on marginalized populations in our city, namely low-income families of color, people living with disabilities, the elderly, and children living on poverty who are at increased risk for homelessness and hunger. Black children in St. Louis are 2.5 times more likely to live in energy insecure homes than white children. Access to utility services like natural gas are essential to health and safety, but are increasingly unaffordable to many. Low-income families and those living on fixed incomes like Social Security and disability insurance experience financial hardship when essential costs of housing, utilities, food, and fuel raise due to inflation and rate increases. These households that are struggling to make ends meet are further burdened by service disconnections and non-payment fees that are associated with not being able to meet rising costs and necessities. Black and brown households in St. Louis are more than twice as likely than white households to forego food or medicine to pay for energy costs. In many cases, especially for children, the elderly, and those living with disabilities, these community members experience higher rates of medical complications resulting from energy insecurity or the inability to adequately meet household needs. In Missouri, utility service can be shut off if payment is not made 21 days after the mailing of a combined bill. The provider is required to postpone a shutoff for up to 21 days only if the shutoff would aggravate an existing medical emergency of a customer. In this case, the customer must provide reasonable evidence of the existing emergency. Not only does this process establish barriers to service for those who are at their most vulnerable, but the charging of late fees, deposits, and other punitive charges further punishes struggling households and contributes to systematic criminalization of the poor. Oftentimes, utility providers use shutoffs as a collection tool, which is inhumane and denies consumer protections. Spire has filed for a $151.9 million raise increase, which would increase St. Louis households' bills by nearly 11%, or almost $10 a month, at best cases. And it was already granted a rate increase less than a year ago that yielded over a 9% corporate profit. The proposed utility rate increase poses risk to St. Louis residents when many are already struggling to make ends meet. I asked the Missouri Public Service Commission to consider the livelihood and the safety of Missouri residents and denied this rate case.
Any commissioner questions? I hear none. I have no questions for you, Ms. Kiefer. Thank you for your comments.
Thank you.
And to kind of shortcut things, if commissioners have questions, if they would just interrupt me or chime in with their questions, I'll just not ask every single time.
Thank you, Judge. I will let you know.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Holzman. Jeanette Oxford. Would you please state and spell your name for the record?
Jeanette Mott Oxford, Jeannette, Mott like the applesauce, M-O-T-T, Oxford like the university, O-X-F-O-R-D.
And do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give at this local public hearing is the truth?
I do.
And what would you like to tell the commission this evening?
Well, thank you for being here. I'm old enough to remember when there were more public hearings before rate increases were granted than there are now. I think that's important to be very accessible to the public and be very accessible. So thank you for being here in St. Louis at the Community College. I have studied utility issues for a long time from a lot of different perspectives. I served in the Missouri House of Representatives from 2005 to 2012, and I was on the Energy and Environment Committee, where we looked at a number of utility issues. I've directed 2 statewide not-for-profits that worked on poverty issues, and in both of those positions, one of the major issues that we looked at was housing insecurity, and the cost of utilities is a major driver of that. And then I'm an active member of my community. I belong to Epiphany United Church of Christ in Benton Park. We have something called the Acts 4 Fund in our congregation, where we help people in our church community, not just members, but also people that stay engaged with us over time. Maybe they haven't formally joined the church, but they're definitely a member of our community. And when they can't pay their utility bills or their rent or pay for medicine, we often assist with that, and members of the congregation contribute to the Acts 4 Fund. So I'm very familiar with the needs of some of my neighbors because I help to raise funds to supplement for their needs. One of those neighbors calls me frequently with her utility problems, and this year she had a story that sounded a lot like the one that we heard from this lady here on my right, and that she had been paying, I believe she told me either $60 or $70 a month, and suddenly it was going to go to $170 a month. She lives on less than $800 a month of SSI. She's 67. She has mental illnesses and physical illnesses that are chronic. And she has a learning disability that's impeded her ability to earn adequate income through most of her life, thus being a senior now living on SSI. You can imagine, if you live on less than $800 a month, how $170 a month gas bill would impact on your life. And so I started trying to help her find help by, reaching out to the company, reaching out to the community action agencies, et cetera. It took weeks to get some help, and it's not quite really resolved yet. I'm sorry that she can't be here tonight to talk to the folks, but I might pass on her name and number to them and see if they would contact her and see if we can get her back into a better program than the one she's in right now. She has trouble sleeping from her worries about whether she can pay her utility bills, and she already has hypertension, and I really feel like not just her, but literally tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people in the St. Louis area have other health conditions exacerbated over their worries about whether they're going to keep their housing stable and keep their utilities stable. So there's just a whole lot of pain in our community. And I hope that you all will consider that as you are looking at this rate increase request. I think it's very appropriate that the investors share the pain of our community. Most people have not had their incomes go up any 10% or 11% in recent years. The minimum wage was stagnant year after year after year until we took the power into our own hands here in Missouri by collecting signatures on petitions and getting the minimum wage to go up some. But that still didn't cope with the true cost of living. Certainly there are so many people that still can't keep their basic needs stable right now. So given inflation, given wage stagnation, given that a lot of us haven't had our incomes go up any 10 or 11%, having investors who are often in pretty comfortable shape be guaranteed that level of profit seems inappropriate to me. They should share the pain that the rest of the community is sharing. And this is a very painful time. I'm 68, and watching what's happening with my financial investors, the company that helps me with my financial planning, reporting to me what's happening with my nest egg out there right now, makes me pretty nervous because it's the time of my life that I'm going to be needing that very soon. So a lot of us are feeling uncertainty and pain, and investors ought to share that pain with us, I believe. I don't think 9% is appropriate. I appreciate the Office of Public Counsel fighting to get that down, but I think even 9% is too much. So I think that the pain should be shared. And then finally, in terms of the helping programs, yes, they should go to at least 300% of the poverty level. And here's why. The poverty level has nothing to do with whether people have an adequate amount of income to secure basic human needs. The poverty level, if you don't know how it was created, it's a formula created by a woman named Molly Orshansky, who was an economist who graduated from Hunter College. She worked for the Social Security Administration, and she came up with a formula that was only about the cost of food, nothing else. It doesn't include rent. It doesn't include taxes. It doesn't include transportation costs, healthcare costs. It's only based on a formula about food, and a very minimum amount of food at that. Not an exorbitant amount of food, but a thrifty amount of food. And there was a formula about how much most poor people tended to pay for their food in the 1950s and 60s that the poverty level was constructed on. That's never been changed. Why? Why haven't we changed it to reflect reality, what things really cost? Well, what president wants to own the fact that the number of people who are listed as officially poor went up to double or 3 times the amount that they were before they were elected president by basing a number on reality? But you know what? When we don't base things on reality, everything falls apart. Let's get real about what level of income people need help at and make these programs have income eligibility guidelines that are based on at least 300% of the poverty level. I'd welcome any questions you have.
Thank you for your comments, Ms. Oxford. I have no questions. Marcia Johnson? Ms. Johnson, would you say and spell your name for the record?
Maisha Johnson, Myishajohnson.
I'm sorry, I mispronounced your name. Would you raise your right hand to be sworn? Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give at this local public hearing is the truth?
I do.
And what would you like to tell the commission this evening?
I am a community member of Dutchtown, also an activist in that community. There are a lot of people in that community that will be harmed if you continue to raise these rates. As you said, you raised the rates in December. That took a toll, put a lot of pressure on the elders in my community, the young folks in my community, and those that are barely surviving. Housing is like a huge deal right now. People are looking for it. As the gentleman stated before, that there are 24,000 families at risk right now of freezing over the winter. There's not enough beds in the spaces where they can go to stay warm. When folks on Section 8 do not pay their utilities, they are evicted. So look at those numbers of those families that you are going to displace by raising these hikes. It is not, I don't feel myself that it is up to us to have to pay for this pipeline. This is something that you all wanted. And it would add more hardship to not just myself, but other family members and community members surrounding me. I really hope that you guys take into consideration that a lot of people have lost family members during COVID season that bring in most of the income to help families survive. Right now, food is like outrageous. I have to pick and choose meals for how to feed my children throughout the week. Not only that, they took away the school buses for like a month and a half, and I had to pay to take my daughter to school and make sure that she had the proper education so the system wouldn't come for me. With adding all the extra things that we need, hand sanitizers, we're back to masks. It takes from us. It hurts to tell our children we can't take trips throughout the year. The small things like buying my daughter a gown to wear to homecoming, I had to do without meds. I had to decide what I was going to take away so my daughter can enjoy her high school years. The rate increase won't allow me to do that if this happens again. I'm already struggling to where am I going to take away each month? Not only myself, but I talk to my neighbors to hear their stories. The building next to me, people have come in and out because they couldn't keep up with their bills. They had to move in with other family members. And then they get evicted from those spaces because they're not allowed to subcontract. Sublease, I'm sorry. And allow others to move in that's not already on the lease. This will continue to happen. The homeless community will continue to grow. You will continue to see babies. I've been helping with the unhoused outreach group, and they're now requesting Enfamil, diapers, diaper wipes, clothing for the babies. Those babies that will freeze over the summer, that would be on you if you continue to raise this increase. We're not angry. We're pissed that you continue to come for the poor and ask us to give you something that we don't even have to give our families to survive. It's inhumane. It's not fair. And as a Christian woman, What would God do? What would Jesus do if he was sitting here with you? This is coming from an angry black woman that lives in the Dutchtown community. Thank you.
Ms. Johnson, thank you for your comments. Kimberly Finnegan.
Excuse me, what order you using to call these names? I mean, I was like the fourth or fifth or sixth person, and other people that come in after me.
I have 3 sheets here, and they are numbered 1 through 37, and I've just been going down them in that order. Please, Mr. Stokes. What's your question? Hold on. No. No. Sir, I apologize for the slow rate that we're going through this. I'm trying to give everybody an opportunity to tell the commission what they'd like to tell the commission, and it appears that people have a lot to say. I'm calling people to the best of my ability in the order that they were signed up as the sheets were given to me. So I apologize for your wait. I know it's late in the evening. I know a lot of you have sacrificed to be here. The commission takes your comments very seriously. It's very important to us that we hear what you have to say, even if we can't answer your questions today or comment. Ms. Finnegan, would you please state and spell your name for the record?
Kimberly Finnegan, KIMBERLY FINNEGAN.
And do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give at this local public hearing is the truth?
I do.
And what would you like to tell the commission?
My name is Kimberly Finnegan. I am a social worker and attorney, and really I am an advocate for low-income clients. I work with the most vulnerable populations in St. Louis, and I've really devoted my career to working with folks with disabilities, veterans, older adults, our rural communities, and just really those people who are in need. And so what I would like the commission to know this evening is that although we may not have hundreds and hundreds of folks providing testimony, that the testimony that is provided is representative of the community and should be taken seriously. And so I just ask that you really be thoughtful in your considerations of what has been said tonight, and know that folks are really hurting, and just be mindful of that in your decision making. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Elise Mack. Ms. Mack, would you please say and spell your name for the record?
My name is Elise, E-L-Y-S-E, Mack, M-A-C-K.
And Ms. Mack, do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give at this local public hearing is the truth?
I do.
And what would you like to tell the commission today?
Good evening. My name is Elise Mack. I use she, her pronouns. Thank you, sir. I'm a resident of the city of St. Louis, and I am here to testify against the greedy rate increase Spire is seeking tonight. I personally am an entry-level public servant. My partner is a teacher, and we do not have the budget necessary for life-saving utilities to increase in price by, on average, more than $100 a month. Despite keeping our home at 55 degrees at night, our energy bills are already exorbitant. This year, I've already paid an average of $80 a month to Spire, and I expect that number to rise as we enter a colder period. My highest bill this year was over $175, so this increase will be like adding an entire bill to my annual budget. My 2022 average payments constitute a $10 a month increase from what I paid in 2021, an average of $70 a month. And this doesn't begin to include other bills we have to account for, like student loan debt, car payments, and thousands in medical bills due to a genetic heart condition that I have. We know that as human-caused climate change, exacerbated by companies like Spire, continues to increase the severity of weather patterns, more winter storms will ravage our area, and the need for heat to survive will only become more acute for all. It is greedy and unjust for Spire to ask for more money when just last year they hiked rates by 3%. Why should we pay more for a service that pollutes our air and our water when Spire made $300 million in profits last year? I'm going to repeat, $300 million in profits last year. Why should we worry for our families freezing to death when Spire's chief executive officer, Suzanne Slitherwood, got a $1.5 million raise last year? She sure can pay her bills. And ours, yes. So in conclusion, I'm personally asking for the Public Service Commission to stop Spire from increasing rates. Our families, our budgets, and our planet simply cannot afford to entertain this greed any longer. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Jacob Aim.
Hi.
Hi. Would you please say and spell your name for the record?
Jacob, J-A-C-O-B, Ami, A-M-M-E.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give at this local public hearing is the truth?
For sure.
Okay. Mr. Ame, what would you like to tell me?
I've been a resident of the city of St. Louis for almost 7 years now, and I'm here to testify, like virtually everyone else here who's not affiliated with Spire, against the proposed rate increase. I cannot afford it personally. I work on a tight budget. I know many others in this room have already expressed they do as well, as hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of people across this state can attest to that as well. I was personally offended when I got a letter in the mail a few weeks ago from Spire, like letting me know, like cluing me in, hey, we're going to propose a rate increase. You know, show up to our hearing. At first I said, oh, well, I'm not going to show up to the hearing. I thought more about it and said, well, what choice do I have? That's the only thing I can do. So I'm here. I drove out here after work. I have to go back to work after this. I have multiple more hours of work to do, but I'm still here because I want to testify. And now something that's already been said twice, the previous speaker reiterated several times, but I want to reiterate again. I think that personally, this is an unethical proposed rate increase, given that in this last year, Spire has, their profits in this past year were $300 million. The CEO, over $5 million, an increase by over 25%, like many others have already said. When is it enough? Like, when is that amount enough? Some representatives of Spire here today have made sort of euphemistic, vague overtures about fair rates of return. And to be clear, a rate of return is just a profit margin. But you try to hide behind this language to make it feel more nice and clean and for us to not really realize what's going on. You see, I made a few other notes while other people were speaking. I mean, to me, this is nothing more, and this is my opinion, I think many others of you would probably agree with me, a cash grab by an investor-based, for-profit corporation, you know, seeking to pad their bottom line. The opinion in this room is unanimous, and commissioners, I humbly ask you to recognize that opinion and to reject this outright, and to not put an even greater undue burden than we already have from the previous rate increases and from all the other increases that we have to face as citizens in this state, in this country, at this time. Thank you.
I have no questions. Thank you for your comments. And I appreciate that everybody kind of wants to chime in when somebody's up here in support, and I think that's great. But if you can hold that until they're done speaking, I think the clapping is certainly appropriate. But while people are speaking, please let them speak. Sam Jones.
Sam Jonesi.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to mispronounce your name.
That's fine. Spelled Samjonesi.
And Mr. Jonesi, do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give at this local public hearing is the truth?
I do.
Okay, and what would you like to tell the commission this evening?
Well, I will say that I'm approaching this from a different angle than probably everybody else in this room, because I seem to be about the only person in this room who isn't worried about the price of his utility bills. I'm very fortunate, but I am worried about where exactly that money in the raise and otherwise is going to. I moved to St. Louis in the year of 2015. Since then, I have sandbagged 3 times. I cleaned up after the tornadoes in Jefferson City. I attended the vigil for the workers who were killed in the Amazon tornado. And during the Winter Storm Erie, I helped out with homeless shelters. I bring all of this up because the fact that Spire is, of course, a natural gas company. Natural gas is being advocated as a transition fuel towards decarbonization. Now, I personally do not take a stance on that. However, many of the people who do are paid by anti-science institutions and think tanks. And none of this is to accuse Spire of anything. This is a concern that I have about the energy industry as a whole. What I ask is that the commission look into where exactly this raise is going to and give it scrutiny, and to make sure that none of the money is earmarked towards that. Thank you.
Can you hold on just a second, because I do have some questions.
Please.
You had indicated that you were not worried about your own bills, but you're worried about what is happening to the money.
Yes.
And can you be, I kind of got a vague overtone there of where you were going. Can you be, is it possible for you to be more specific, just so I can get a better grasp?
Well, when it comes to the part of not being worried, I mean, part of it
But
is
not worried as much as you were concerned about what is happening to the money from a rate increase. Can you explain that to me more clearly?
I would like to emphasize that none of this is to accuse Spire of any wrongdoing. My concern is about simply the energy industry as a whole, and Spire is, of course, an energy company. I want to make that clear. As for the, shall we say, the lies that I am concerned about, it is lies specifically about the existence or non-existence of climate change, which is, of course, provable.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that for me. And thank you for your comments. And I'm sorry, I am going to butcher this, I apologize. Jahi Bakari? And would you please state and spell your name for the record?
Well, I wish you all took some of that rate increase last year and bought some Lysol or something. We are in the middle of a pandemic, but okay, I'll try. Jahi Bakari, Jahibakari.
And Mr. Bakari, would you raise your right hand to be sworn? Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth?
Yes.
And I apologize. I know you've waited patiently, so I appreciate you sticking around to give your comments.
Okay, this is not going to be long. I just want to not thank Spire for being here. No thank you to the Missouri Public Commission. No thank you to the commissioners, because this is a sham. This is a farce. I was told in the first part of the meeting that not once has Spire ever been rejected a rate increase. They only didn't get as much. So we're going through all of this, and you're going to offer them 9%? My bank doesn't even give me 4%. It's tough out here. Why can't Spire take an L like the rest of us? Why you all still got to make money? Your investors are making money while people are homeless. All these stories, they are breaking my heart. I'm not even in a bad position. And you all sit up here in these $1,000 suits and whatnot asking for money? Please, commissioners, if you have any decency, don't give them 9%, don't give them 11%, don't give them 0%. Show some guts and just say no to this whole process, and let's get another utility company to compete with them, because I promise you, you wouldn't be asking for 11% if you had another gas company out here offering a decent rate. It's just not fair. You all in the same bed together. I don't appreciate you wasting my time this evening, and I promise you, you're going to be hearing so much more from me. You wish you never sent me that letter. I'm done.
Okay, I have no questions for you. Thank you for your comments. Christian Blackman. Would you please say and spell your name for the record?
Yep, Christian Blackman, Kristian, Blackman, Blackmon.
And do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give at this local public hearing is the truth?
I do.
And what would you like to tell the commission this evening?
So again, my name is Christian Blackman. I work at Homes for All St. Louis. We are a housing justice advocacy organization. Our motto is housing is a human right. And all night I've been hearing a lot about programming and programs and assistance and all of that. For me, I got a bit annoyed with that, because for many of us, many people in the room, we know about the programs. We're constantly working with tenants and renters, helping them get the programs, helping them get the assistance. And oftentimes they are still finding themselves not having everything that they need. What I'm also quite frustrated about this evening is the fact that we have to continue to come up as community and basically share all these sad sob stories, proving our humanity. You all know what's up. You all know, we're all living in the same reality. We know what's happening with inflation. We know what's happening, what has happened, and more issues that have come from during the pandemic around people not having enough. So the fact that so many people have to come up, share these very sad, sorry stories to prove to y'all that this increase is not okay. It's just really crazy to me. It's frustrating to me. I think it's an insult to us as community. You've heard the numbers. We know the numbers, how much money that Spire has made, how much money the CEO has made. And I think that ultimately, for me, it just shows that you don't care about community. I wish that we wouldn't do things like I appreciate the public hearing. People can come and share and give their testimony, things. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying the fact that we have to go to such great lengths to prove the fact that this is not okay, to continue to share stories saying that this is not okay. So many people have come up, talked about thinking about my mother. I've heard fixed income so many times tonight, but talking to my mother, who's a retired St. Louis public school teacher, all she wanted me to tell y'all is that she's on a fixed income. She doesn't understand why there's another increase when we just had one at the end of last year. And my mother's a widow. It's just her in the house. So another story to add to the other hundreds of stories that you all will continue to hear, testimonies that you're going to continue to hear. I would just say this increase is not okay. period. I don't understand why. I heard what you all said. I also love the fact that you pointed out that part of this increase is going to employees. Yet the CEO has made millions, but you didn't point that part out. You pointed out that some of this increase is going to the other employees, but you didn't point out the fact that your CEO has made so much money during a pandemic that we're still in. So tonight I really just had frustrations with the fact that hearing this again, hearing the fact that we got to talk to tenants, talk to renters, so real quick, a number I'm gonna throw out. I'm not really a big stats person, but sometimes it matters to y'all. Most folks that work at poverty or below poverty, over almost 70% of their income just goes to rent alone. It just goes to them to have a house over their head. That doesn't even add in the utilities. That doesn't add in the food. It doesn't add in if they have children, how they have to take care of their children. So again, I'm about to wrap it up. I'll be done. The increase is not cool. Many of us in the community, like myself, will continue to speak out against this. But when we leave here, we got to go and deal with community, work with tenants, support tenants, make sure that they can stay in their homes, make sure they can keep their gas. They're like, I get y'all have programs, you have people call angrily, but we are actually with community and with them, trying to make sure that people survive when folks should be thriving. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Ashley Bolden.
Good evening. My name is Ashley Bolden, ASHLIBOLDEN.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give at this local public hearing is the truth?
Yes, sir.
Okay, what would you like to tell us tonight?
Well, that scary email about the pipeline came 11/4/2021. I sent a tweet out on January 25th saying how my bill went from $300 to like $1,000 because of those increases. I am a homeowner in St. Louis City. I live in a duplex, so I pay y'all twice a month. Nobody's upstairs because I'm busy paying this high Spire bill and can't rehab my top floor. All that rain, we have roof damage. I pay for that. I cannot deal with another increase. I don't want to pay y'all. I want to go on vacation. I don't want to give y'all my whole check. I don't want to get a second job. I have been looking into electric stoves because I love hot tea. I love to cook. It costs too much for me to go out to eat. I have been looking into electric broilers because I love my old home. I have radiator heat. Yes, I grew up putting plastic over the windows. Yes, we re-insulate. But I don't want another increase. I don't have much more money to give to y'all. But I have to take out of my pocket to buy new stuff to keep up with everything. And then like the sister said, y'all took our stuff from the inside, put it on the outside, and didn't even beautify it. It's just two ugly things on the front of my house. My neighbor's meters are on my property. That needs to be removed. Please, no more rate hikes. Thank you.
Hold on just a second. Ms. Bolden, you had indicated this 11/4/21 letter you received, and I assume that was about the pipeline, correct?
Yes, that was about the pipeline, and in it, it said that if we can't get the pipeline, then there are going to be some outages. All I could think about was those people in Texas who did not have heat for days. When I saw my bill, I called Spire and I said, what happened? Can you please explain my bill? And I said, you know what? I don't mean to get an attitude with you today because I'm sure you have gotten 1,000 calls about this increase. The first increase. That was ridiculous.
Mr. Applington.
Yes, ma'am. Would you be willing to share your address so we can look at the meter location issue?
Nope. Yeah.
Okay.
And I was,
I'll call in for that.
okay. And please, nobody share your address. This is a public record, so we have rules against revealing customer-specific information,
Thank
so I'd
you.
rather not do that. Thank you for your comments, Ms. Bolden. Scott Will? Would you please say and spell your name?
My name is Scott Will, Scottwill.
And do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give at this local public hearing is the truth?
I do.
And what would you like to tell the commission this evening?
I apologize, I'm going to be looking at my phone. I'll try to be brief.
Take your time.
Spire should not be allowed to raise their rates. In fact, the rates should be frozen, their profits should be taxed at a higher percentage, and frankly, the company should be dissolved and they should become a utility held in common by the people of Missouri. Why should anyone be allowed to profit on what is a basic need? Spire's argument for needing this rate increase is, at least partly, to offset the infrastructure investments they've made. They claim that they couldn't possibly foreseen how much more money they would need to cover these costs after their last rate hike in December 2021. Instead of making this our problem and giving Spire more money while we're in the midst of inflation and economic downturn, I might suggest Spire simply budget their wallets better. Spire recorded near record profits in 2020, doubling their actual profits from 2019 to 2020. What happened to all that money? If Spire is so strapped for cash, why did they increase their stock dividend payouts in 2021? Why did they give their CEO a 26% raise in 2021? What kind of company, supposedly coming to us hat in hand, can afford to give their CEO nearly $3 million in stock? To me, at least, this newest rate increase just seems like another attempt by Spire to try and fleece the residents of St. Louis. Let's talk about these infrastructure investments. I'm sure I'm not the only one to have the absolute pleasure of driving on Spire's massive metal plates they've left strewn across the city and county. I'm not the only one that's been stuck in endless traffic as Spire rips up the same section of road for the 4th time this year. Frankly, we should take a page out of Kansas City's book, where they froze all Spire improvements until Spire actually fixed the roads they had destroyed. Or in Leeds, Missouri, where they were called out by residents for leaving debris strewn across lawns and streets. And what about, sorry, did not mean to hit the mic there. What about their pipeline, which federal commissions called unneeded, which every day threatens to dump its contents into the Mississippi? The pipeline that's currently operating on a temporary certificate with no environmental impact statement from the feds for an indefinite period. This same pipeline that they've used for the past 3 years as a cudgel to threaten us with utility shutoffs and freezing us out if they don't get their way. When Spire shuts off working class folks' utilities this winter, will they take solace in the new profits that line their pockets? Will they smile in their warm homes, seated around a blazing natural gas fireplace as they pump methane back and forth across the river? Probably. While we're left out in the cold, while our neighbors freeze, at least we'll know that the good folks at Spire were able to keep their revenues in the black. Good for y'all.
Thank you for your comments. I have no questions.
Thank you.
Sarah Watkins. And I appreciate everybody being patient. I will get to everybody who wants to speak tonight. Would you please say and spell your name for the record?
Yes, my name is Sarah Watkins. It's spelled the right way, S-A-R-A-H. Last name W-A-T-K-I-N-S.
And do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give at this local public hearing is the truth?
Absolutely.
And what would you like to tell me tonight?
I'd like to start off my testimony from a personal point of view. I'm a single mother in St. Louis. When I first came to St. Louis, in 2013, I was homeless, and I moved in with my friend in her multifamily home. However, there were 3 adults in the house, and we could not get the gas turned on in that house because we all had previous bills. So I spent 5 years in a 2-story house with no heat, 5 cold winters. I remember waking up one night under my sleeping bag and 2 very heavy blankets, thinking, wow, it's colder than it was when I went to sleep. And I looked at my phone, and it was negative 14 degrees in my house. A lot of folks will experience that if you vote yes on this increase. I make my living by talking to tenants and renters every day, mostly in the city, but also in the county. A lot of tenants that we talk to are still behind on utilities. You may be familiar with the program SAFER that offers rental assistance and utility assistance by the state. In case you haven't checked or heard the numbers, just this week, SAFER awarded $12 million in utility assistance to Missouri residents. And when we talk about programs, like most of us have said, people will fall through the gaps. Those gaps are cold and dark and lonely. We know with the cold weather rule, what usually happens is there comes a lot of disconnects right before. This will affect low-income households. This will affect Black and brown families with children. This will affect elderly folks, a lot of who I talked to today who couldn't be here because they're in bed and they can't move because of their health issues. This comes during the winter time when folks will be home more. We have the holidays, kids are on breaks. No one has the extra money to spare, and I feel like, and I know that Spire is out of touch with reality and their community to sit up here and suggest that we pay you more money to line your pockets. And so I want to ask the PSC to act in the interest of the people that it serves. Someone needs to represent the consumers. Someone needs to represent the people. Someone needs to stand up and say, this doesn't make any sense and it's not right. A yes on this vote will displace people. It will leave folks homeless. Folks will be evicted if they cannot pay their utility bills. And so when you hear these numbers about the influx in unhoused folks and the influx of people on the streets, I want you to think about your decision and what you're asking, because that's what's going to happen. So think about all those people that will be in the cold, all those people that will be displaced when you want to make more money, I guess. And then I guess the last thing I'd like to say, which I mean, a lot of this has already been said before, but like we said, everything is raising. Rents are increasing, almost doubling. Food is outrageous. People in this room have said that they're choosing between medicine and other basic necessities. It's just not the time. It wasn't the time in December, and it's not the time now. And we don't appreciate the effort to make this rate increase sound like it'll be helping folks in your community when you're throwing us under the bus to do that. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Ms. Watkins. Grace Tedder. Would you please say and spell your name for the record?
Grace Tedder, that's Gracetedder.
And do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give at this local public hearing is the truth?
I do.
And what would you like to tell the commission this evening?
Just wanted to say thank you for the opportunity to testify tonight. I have some stuff that I prepared, but I also, this is my first rate hearing that I've been to, and I was a little surprised to see that, you know, commissioners are on Zoom and maybe not everyone's present. I know it's public record, but to me that was a little frustrating. I don't know if other people share that, you know, we take the time to be here and, you know, there's things that come up, but it would be great to see all the commissioners here, or even be able to see the commissioners. But with that, on the rate case, my name's Grace Tedder. Like I said, I live in St. Louis, and I'm here tonight to ask you to not allow Spire to raise rates. You know, I have a pretty decent situation. I live with a partner. Utility bills are doable. Our apartment's not well insulated, so it's not as warm as I'd like, but it's okay. But this year, you know, we've got, everything is just costing more. Like food and everything is a lot higher. We've got student loan payments that are about to resume. And, you know, I'm kind of worried about the next couple winters if we have this rate increase and just the cost of fracked gas itself rising another 30% or more outside of what Spire is controlling directly. And I'm really, really worried about friends and neighbors who've already really been struggling with their utility bills and been struggling to keep the heat on or not being able to. And to be honest, it's pretty insulting for Spire to request another rate increase after they received a 3% increase just last year. And after they spent last fall fear-mongering about the Spire STL pipeline that's now tied up at FERC over self-dealing questions. I think it's obscene for Spire to ask for increased profits for their executives and their shareholders when St. Louisans are struggling to keep the heat on at a time when our fossil gas prices themselves are steeply rising due to those aftershocks of the Winter Storm Uri and the war in Ukraine and pandemic-related issues. And I think, you know, personally, it's downright dangerous to keep giving Spire money in the form of rate increases for expanding this fracked gas infrastructure in St. Louis when we're already feeling the impacts of their dirty fuel in terms of climate change, as well as the immediate impacts of health issues associated with gas usage. And I'm a community organizer with a group called River City Climate Collective, and we believe that the people should own and control our utilities, not investors, and that we should be pulling the emergency brake on our use of fossil gas. And while it's no long-term solution, not adding on to the already exorbitant executive pay and company profits by declining this rate increase would be one small step in the right direction. So commissioners, I ask that you please listen to the people, not Spire, and that you vote no on Spire's rate increase.
Thank you for your comments. I have no questions.
Thank you.
Dama Gray.
Hello, I'm Dana Gray, D-A-N-A-G-R-A-Y.
That's my poor reading. I apologize.
No worries.
And do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give at this local public hearing is the truth?
Most certainly. I work with Tower Grove Community Development Corporation. We're an affordable housing provider in the city of St. Louis. And we've collected feedback from just a few of our tenants about how the Spire rate increase would impact them. Pre-pandemic, the average annual income of our tenants was $25,536 a year.
Can you say that again one more time?
Yes. Pre-pandemic, the average annual income for our tenants was $25,536.
Thank you.
We offer rent at 30% below the market rate, and we target households with incomes between 30% to 80% of the area median income. So we are targeting low-income families for our affordable housing. We've got comments from a few of these tenants. Susie, who lives in Tower Grove South, she's a renter, single head of household, and she asks the Public Service Commission to not impose more utility costs on working and poor families who will be impacted greater than others. The utility company is reaping record profits, and even as COVID has ravaged the economy and people's health. It's driving families into dire financial straits. Please don't add to the cost of what is already a very trying time. Matthew, a renter in the Shaw neighborhood, is struggling with all of his utility bills, housing, and food cost. Amber, a renter in Tower Grove neighborhood, asked why is her utility rate increasing when her service is the same. Amber's household lost 2 incomes during the pandemic. Jamie, who lives in the Shaw neighborhood, is a single parent, head of her household, and says her budget billing payment is $90 and she cannot afford that. With the increased cost of food, fuel, and electric, she cannot afford another utility rate increase. She has a growing teenager and makes too much gross income to receive public assistance. Jamie's family was negatively impacted by the pandemic. Another single parent and renter who wished to remain anonymous said that Spire is a monopoly and their demand for money at this time would totally negatively impact their household and countless others. She asked the Public Service Commission to protect families. Another renter in the Shaw neighborhood who wished to remain anonymous says they struggle to pay all of their bills. They work as an independent contractor, so their income varies month to month. They stick to a very strict budget, but when costs increase, it makes it really hard to make things balance. This person was severely impacted by the pandemic. Nora, a single trans person, said the pandemic greatly impacted her, and she lost jobs during that time. If she gets sick again, she won't have sick leave and will miss pay. Everything she earns is less now with all the added costs. Another single occupant of an apartment in Tower Grove South says every increase is less that I have to pay down my credit debt or be able to put away anything for retirement. They're 42 years old. As a performing artist, they lost their career overnight in the pandemic and have had to go back to school and learn a new career path. All of our tenants are on low incomes and would be severely impacted by another rate increase. So they ask that the Public Service Commission not approve the rate increase.
Thank you for your comments.
Thank you.
Jeffrey Booker.
Good evening.
Would you please say and spell your name for the record?
Jeffrey Booker, Jeffrey Booker.
And Mr. Booker, do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give at this local public hearing is the truth?
Yes.
What would you like to tell the commission?
Well, good evening to everyone. And I just want to say, first of all, that in reference to the rate increase from last year, if the money that was asked for was used properly, there wouldn't be another rate increase this time. Because if you use the money like you claim you were going to use it for, where's the result? If I go to the bank and ask to borrow money and I don't use that money adequately, and I go back to the bank and ask for an additional amount of money, they're going to ask me questions. What did you do with the first amount? Where is that going? Can you actually prove that you use that money for what you claimed you were going to use it for? So in this situation, for Spire to claim that they need additional money, and they're, like the gentleman said, that they're only game in town. We can't go anywhere else and get gas. We can't go to Walmart, Sam's, Costco. We got to deal with this company because we're stuck with them. And they're not using their money adequately. They're not adequating their money in a proper business-like manner. And that's hurting many families. My dad is a widower. My mother passed away. He's dealing with some issues financially as a result. But again, that's another sob story. But the bottom line is no to this rate increase and no to any rate increase in the future until Spire can adequately prove that they're using their money for what they claim they're using it for.
Thank you for your comments.
Thank you.
Stephanie Booker. Would you please say and spell your name for the record?
Stephanie, S-T-E-P-H-A-N-I-E. Booker, B-O-O-K-E-R.
And Ms. Booker, do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give at this local public hearing is the truth?
I do.
Thank you. What would you like to tell the commission this evening?
Okay, the first thing I wanted to address, so many people have said concerns that I was going to bring forward. But my concern is the reason I'm frustrated about the rate increase. I've been a victim of fire. I was without gas for 3 years because of going through a divorce. I had to use electric heaters to keep my children, my 3 children, warm. The room caught on fire because, I mean, we had to literally put the fire out, call the fire department. The fire department wanted to know, why do you not have gas? I can't afford it. I have 3 children. I'm paying the electric bill. I'm paying for food. I can't afford gas. So he gave me the name of a program. He said, well, if you know people feeling, send dollar help. So call them and see if you can get some assistance. Well, after 4 months, I get assistance. They turn the gas back on. Now, I moved. I'm in a residence where I'm in a duplex. I pay 2 electric bills. It's 2 gas bills. The upstairs have not had gas for 20 years. I can only afford to heat the first floor. The first floor. Now, I'm not looking for commiseration, just consideration. At such a time as this, we got winter coming up. Fires that's been going on. Firefighters have to work harder because people are trying to use heaters to warm up. Are you guys that's imposing the rate increase, or is it affecting you? I mean, this rate increase will affect all of us. All of us. So we're just asking for consideration at a time as this.
Thank you for your comments, Ms. Booker. Ashton Cannell.
Hi, my name is Ashton Kuehnel, spelled A-S-H-T-O-N, K-U-E-H-N-E-L. It's a really German last name. It's okay.
Can you say that for me one more time?
Yeah.
Kuehnel?
Kuehnel. The U and the H is silent.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give at this public hearing is the truth?
I do. And forgive me as I pull up my testimony really quickly. Came up a lot quicker than I thought. I thought it was one of the very last ones. All right. Hello, good evening. My name is Ashton Kuehnel. I'm a grassroots organizer for the Sierra Club. I live in St. Louis. I'm a recent college graduate from St. Louis University. I want to thank you, Your Honor, and the commissioners for the opportunity to speak today on Spire's proposed rate increase. It's crucial for customers like me to be involved in the utility decision that will impact us and our community. Affordable, reliable, and clean energy is a public good, and we must ensure the voices of the community are being centered tonight. I hope tonight's turnout will lead the Public Service Commission to holding more public hearings in the future, as many people have a lot to say. But I'm here to speak in opposition to this increase. Last winter, I saw my gas bill increase like so many others here tonight after I received an email from Spire saying that we might lose our heat because of, quote, New York environmentalists. I soon found out that that was because Spire was being held accountable for problems with this proposed St. Louis pipeline, and that we were in fact in no threat to losing heat from lose heat in our households, but lose heat from Spire itself. Spire's emails scared me and my neighbors, especially knowing the extreme weather we can face here during a Missouri winter, which is worsening each year due to our reliance on fossil fuels like fracked gas. In addition to gas prices going up, I learned that Spire has also increased my bill. So now here Spire is asking for more money from its customers after, one, just being approved for an increase in rates not even a full year ago, and two, misleading and scaring community customers about freezing to hide from their wrongdoings. As someone who is paying for student loans, trying to plan a wedding, and struggling to deal with already increasing prices everywhere, as so many folks have said before, I am strongly opposed to my bill and all other customers' bills going up. As a community organizer, I know there are a lot of customers, including some of my friends and neighbors, who are worried about their rates going up who cannot be in this room tonight. I care about and am very concerned about my neighbors who do not have a voice in this room, who are already financially struggling. This proposed rate case will negatively impact people who Spire is supposed to serve, especially when 1 in 6 households in America are already behind on utility bills. 1 in 6. It is time that Spire is held accountable for the decisions they are making in providing energy in a safe and affordable way. Please vote no on Spire's proposed rate hike. And I also want to add, I do believe that the federal poverty limitations needs to go up from 200 to at least 300, if not more, so more people can have access to the programs that they so desperately need to pay their bill. Thank you.
You indicated you received an email from Spire, and I'm assuming New York Environmentalists is a paraphrasing of yours, is that correct?
No, that was a quote.
That's a quote.
From my understanding, yes. I read that from Spire. Might not be in the email, but it was in communication from Spire.
Do you remember when you received that email? Roughly?
Probably, there was a series of emails sent out. The first email I remember receiving was in November of 2021.
You said a series of emails.
Series of emails, yeah.
And the first one you remember is November of 21?
Yes.
Did you also receive a letter from them regarding the pipeline, like some of the others have indicated?
Not a physical letter, but an email communication.
Okay. Thank you for your comments.
Thank you.
Clara Chavez-Ives.
Clara Chavez-Ives, CLARACHAVEZ-IVES.
And do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give at this local public hearing is the truth?
I do.
What would you like to tell the commission?
First of all, I want to say thank you to the Public Service Commission for giving us the opportunity to speak on the proposed rate increase by Spire. I'm an undergrad student at WashU, and I'm pretty concerned about the impact yet another rate increase would have on my community, as is everyone else in this room. Last winter, as everyone's been saying, Spire sent out these fear-mongering emails insisting that they would be unable to guarantee gas supply for heating our homes without support for their illegally constructed STL pipeline. They used this fear to ask for higher rates, which they were approved. Now it's been less than a year, and they want to increase their prices again by a much greater percentage. While they're claiming they want to provide for their customers, these profit-motivated actions indicate otherwise. They already have high fixed fees, and increasing rates further already burdens their customers more. This is also a racial justice issue, as the Environmental Racism in St. Louis report notes. Low-income Black and renting households in St. Louis face significantly higher energy burdens than the St. Louis population at large. So Spire is just taking advantage of our most vulnerable community members just to make up the profit they've lost due to legal fees they've incurred for their polluting pipeline. As an environmental studies student, I'm acutely aware of the environmental and public health impacts of Spire's practices. Fracked gas plants and pipelines are making the air we breathe dirtier, and St. Louis in particular already has poor air quality and high rates of air pollution. These practices of Spires are contributing to this and exacerbating the public health impacts of poor air quality like asthma. And so I guess just to the MOPSC, you say your mission statement is to ensure that Missourians receive safe and reliable utility services at just, reasonable, and affordable rates. So don't allow another rate increase that supports Spire's continued exploitation of their customers. Please vote no. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Eileen Jamison. Would you please state and spell your name for the record?
Thanks, Judge. It's Eileen, E-I-L-E-E-N, Jamieson, J-A-M-I-E-S-O-N.
And do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give at this public hearing is the truth?
I do. I'm going to start off thanking the Public Service Commission for allowing me to speak today. It's important for community members to be involved in utility decisions like this that are going to impact our community and our shared environment. Again, my name is Eileen Jamison. I live in St. Louis. I have since 2018. I'm from Texas. Last winter, I saw my gas bill increase after Spire stoked fears in an email claiming that gas would run out and St. Louisians would freeze because they were being held accountable for breaking the law. And now Spire is trying to increase their rates again, not even a full year later. I am privileged in that I could afford to pay the last increase without having to sacrifice essential necessities like groceries and medicine. But I can't imagine the struggle of those less fortunate than me that did have to make those sacrifices. I've been sitting through this whole hearing just thinking about all the people that we lost in Texas. And I'm remembering my fear getting the email last year. And it doesn't even affect me personally. But Missouri is a lot colder than Texas, y'all. It's a lot colder. I remember my first year living here, there was a day it was like negative 20 degrees. During the day, it was the coldest I've ever felt. And I just can't imagine people feeling that in their homes because they can't keep the gas on. I'm a student of social work, getting my master's, concentrating in communities and organization. And I care about my neighbors who don't have a voice in this room. Fracked gas plants and pipelines are making the air we breathe dirtier, and not everyone has the liberty to be here on a work day to submit testimony. I also speak for my elderly neighbors who are disabled and living on a fixed income. They have to make a choice between food, medicine, and gas bills. No one should have to make the decision between eating or paying their utility bill or just living. Like many others, I am irritated and do not want any utility bills to go up, especially during a time when prices are already high across the area for necessities, and especially when it goes to serve corporate profits and legal fees for polluting pipelines. To the MOPSC, I ask that, and to reiterate, I ask that you stay true to your mission statement of ensuring that Missourians receive safe and reliable utility services at just, reasonable, and affordable rates. Please vote no on Spire's proposed rate hike. Thank you.
Now, you received an email. Did you also receive a letter?
I don't remember.
Thank you for your comments.
Thank you.
Nyree Bradley. Would you please say and spell your name for the record?
Yes, Nyree Bradley. My name is spelled N as in Nancy, Y-R-E-E-B-R-A-D-L-E-Y.
And do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give at this public hearing is the truth?
I do.
And what would you like to tell the commission?
Good evening, Your Honor. My name is Nairi Bradley, and I'm a second-year law student at St. Louis University School of Law. I'm also a low-income Spire customer and a single mother of 3 small children. Approving Spire's rate increase request will perpetuate social injustice and exploitation of low-income families and individuals with children. Research shows that there are a growing number of households that earn above the federal poverty level, yet are struggling to afford basic living expenses. These households include workers who are working 2 or more jobs and whose wages cannot keep up with the rising cost of utility services. These workers keep our local communities running, but often have to make the tough decision of paying their gas bill or putting gas in their car to maintain employment. Utility services like Spire's requires a large percentage of family budgets. Approving the rate increase will potentially lead to a larger financial need for ongoing existence and unexpected events such as disconnection or shut-off fees. This poses the question of whether existing customer assistance programs such as LIHEAP are sustainable when the community need is high. We would need to look into, if the commission approves this request, another or maybe additional customer assistance programs, that are both preventative and responsive to consumer needs. As a lot of consumers here stated, traditional measures such as median incomes and poverty guidelines are inadequate to successfully capture the number of affordability households in the community. Rather than aim to promote social justice by offering affordable rates to its low-income consumers, Spire is de facto requesting that we permit it to burden an overly strained group of consumers so that Spire's president and CEO can continue to receive her, base salary of $925,000 a year. According to the Security Exchange Commission, Spire's highest earning executives received more than $12 million in compensation in 2021. Shifting the financial burden to low-income families and individuals with children is not a just solution to Spire's problem. Spire must strive to balance revenue stability while ensuring its customers' bills reflect the actual cost of their relative service requirements. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Ashley Redd. Would you please say and spell your name for the record?
Ashley Redd, ASHLEYREDD.
And do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give at this local public hearing is the truth?
I do.
And what would you like to tell the commission?
When I decided to testify at this meeting, it was hard to know where to begin. This is partially because I'm from Phoenix, Arizona, a place until recent years legally permitted the state's primary utility provider to shut off their services during the hot summer months when a client got behind in their payments, resulting in the harsh reality that every year, even to this day, a significant other news articles would suffocate my news feed with the plastered headlines that read of another child or elderly person dying from lack of utility service. While I don't think energy shutoffs in Arizona are entirely comparable to the rising utility costs in St. Louis, I believe St. Louis has unique characteristics that indicate just as serious of consequences to energy burdens as I mentioned for Arizona. For instance, the building quality in the St. Louis region is a critical aspect. The Affordable Housing Report Card estimated that 25% of renter households in St. Louis had their homes identified to have had severe problems caused by poor insulation, air leaks, and old heating and cooling systems. These issues are more prevalent with low-income communities, which account for 52% of households that pay 25 to 60% above average energy cost per square foot in the St. Louis region.
Can you say that again, please?
Which part?
The statistic.
It was that 52% of low-income households pay between 25 to 60% above average energy costs per square foot. May I
Thank
continue?
you. Go ahead. I apologize.
The extent of that issue is well beyond financial hardships in the terms of housing for those who experience the most severe energy burdens. There's also studies that show as high as 40% of struggling households will put off medical treatment to pay necessary bills such as utilities. These households are more vulnerable and at higher risk of life-threatening consequences to their health because of these rising costs. Before I go further, I wanted to take a moment to acknowledge that as a student resident in St. Louis, I continue to hold some privilege when it comes to living off of a fixed income and experiencing rises in cost of living. At the same time, the burden my family and I have to carry as all areas of living expenses continue to rise is also a valid concern for this issue. Before the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic, 52% of students already felt that they were housing insecure. And that same survey showed that in 2020, 14 to 29% of all college students could not pay their entirety utility bill. Speaking from my own perspective as a graduate student, I am expected to maintain full-time status meet all the set requirements for graduating on time. This makes me responsible for an average 27 hours of coursework per week on top of the 20 hours of unpaid field education work. My studies consume over the amount of a full-time work position, and the sole cost of my tuition makes it critical that I do not neglect my studies in any way. I am in a situation where I cannot get a job that could supplement the rising costs that are unable to be covered by my student loans. Furthermore, my family is still recovering from COVID. My mom is a small business owner who is being forced to close her doors once her lease ends in February, and my dad had lost his job. While they are still forced at times to help because all areas of living expenses have been rising, neither of them would be able to sustainably support me if utility costs increase. I am unsure where this would lead me if the rate increases continue to be approved as they have. So as I conclude, I ask you to please think of the consequences that everyone has brought up tonight for low income and also for those struggling students whose financial burdens are often forgotten about or expected to be placed on already struggling families.
Thank you for your comments, Ms. Rudd.
One quick question.
Mr. Applington, go ahead.
Thank you. On the citation, or actually, do you have a citation or source for that stat that you gave to the judge about the energy burden per square foot? That was interesting.
Yeah, I do. It's from the Affordable Housing Report Card. Oh, actually, that one actually might be from the Environmental Racism in STL report.
Got it. Thank you so
No
much.
problem. Thank you.
Latasha Barnes. Would you please state and spell your name for the record?
Latasha Barnes, Latasha, last name Barnes, like the hospital, Barnes.
And do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give at this public hearing is the truth?
Yes, I do.
And what would you like to tell the PSC?
Thank you. To the Honorable Commission and to all parties involved, my name is Latasha Barnes. I'm an attorney in the Senior Law Program at Legal Services of Eastern Missouri. Legal Services is a private nonprofit organization dedicated to advancing justice through legal representation, education, and supportive services. Our clients are low-income, seniors, and people with disabilities, covering 21 counties in Eastern Missouri. Our promise to the community is action, justice, and hope. We are here tonight to fulfill that promise to our community members. Last year, we helped over 37,000 people. We are here on their behalf tonight. As a part of our mission, we partner with the community to improve lives, promote fairness, and create opportunities for those in need. Utility access and affordability are central to our mission because our clients are unfairly and disproportionately carrying the burden of high energy costs, often with grave risk to their health. The question tonight is, who should bear this burden? I promise you, our clients cannot afford to do so. And I'll share a couple of their stories. Lori is a disabled Army veteran with a fixed income. She spends almost $300 a month to meet her medical expenses. During the winter months, Miss Lori sometimes alternates between buying certain medicines and paying her Spire bill to make ends meet. Vernon is an 80-year-old St. Louis City resident. His only source of income is $750 in Social Security benefits. He often does not have enough money to pay his rapidly mounting gas bill. When I spoke to him before tonight's hearing, he described an incident that happened on Saturday night. As the temperatures dropped into the 40s just this past Saturday, Mr. Vernon refused to turn on his heat. He instead turned on the oven to 400 degrees and sat by the stove to keep warm. Fran is a widow and a mother of two. Her lease requires that she initiate and maintain utility services at all times or face eviction. She tried her best to make partial payments to keep up with these obligations, but her gas bill quickly ballooned to over $1,800 because of late fees and penalty charges. When her services were disconnected, her landlord filed an eviction action. David lives in a small brick bungalow in St. Louis City. This house was built in the early 1900s. His home is poorly insulated, and the heating and cooling system is very dated. It was the only rental home he was able to afford. Despite his best efforts to control his usage and to be energy efficient, his gas bill is often twice the amount of those he knows. He is unable to afford ongoing gas expenses. These clients are unable to afford their current gas bill. They will certainly be unable to afford any increase that is imposed upon them. And these stories are not uncommon. On average, low-income energy burdens are 2 to 3 times higher than the median energy burden. An estimated 1.1 million Missourians bore with necessary expenses for food and medicine to pay an energy bill just last year. Over 650,000 Missourians kept their homes at unsafe or unhealthy temperatures to control costs, and 15.7% of Missourians were unable to pay their energy bill in full last year. Many of our clients at Legal Services and low-income Missourians across the state already experience difficulties paying their bills and are making impossible choices between maintaining natural gas service and meeting basic needs for health, safety, and well-being. It is very easy for those with means to suggest what those without can afford. It is very easy to say that assistance programs are sufficient when you are not the one using them. Many of our clients do not get the help that they need. People cannot afford to bear this burden. Many more households will struggle if Spire is granted another rate increase as a result of these proceedings. In this regard, we affirm the comments that have already been made by our colleagues, Nairi Bradley, Ashley Redd, Corey Bush, Glenn Burley, and Tower Grove Community Development Center. In addition, higher gas prices will have a disparate impact on Black, Hispanic, and other communities of color who already pay a much larger share of their income on energy bills. In this regard, Legal Services stands with the City of St. Louis on resolution number 116 to note this fact that a rate increase will undoubtedly perpetuate social injustice and widen the racial wealth gap across our region. At Legal Services, we firmly believe that every Missourian deserves the right to have access to affordable, basic utility services, including natural gas utility services provided by Spire. The Commission's denial of Spire's request for a rate increase will undoubtedly improve and protect the safety of low-income Missourians who are currently struggling to pay their current gas bill. For this reason, we urge the Commission to deny the pending request, and we recommend an expansion of assistance programs to at or above 300% of the federal poverty limit. We hope that your actions will ensure that all Missourians receive a safe and reliable utility service at a just, reasonable, and affordable rate. Thank you.
Thank you. I have no questions.
Thank you.
Megan Green?
It's Megan Green, spelled M-E-G-A-N, green like the color G-R-E-E-N.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give at this local public hearing is the truth?
Yes, I do.
And what would you like to tell the Commission?
Like I said, my name is Megan Aaliyah Green. I am the 15th Ward Alderwoman in the city of St. Louis, and I am the lead sponsor of Resolution 117 that passed in bank last week through the St. Louis Board of Aldermen. What in bank means is that every single member of the Board of Aldermen signed on personally with their level of support to this resolution. So we followed in the footsteps of the Kansas City City Council in passing this resolution that I would like to read to you. It says, whereas inflation pressures as reflected in changes in the Consumer Price Index have rapidly increased over the past year, and whereas Black, American Indian, Hawaiian Pacific Islander households are more than twice as likely than white households to forego food or medicine to pay energy costs, and whereas Black and Hispanic children are 2.5 times and 1.5 times more likely to live in energy insecure homes, meaning homes at risk of energy disconnection, and whereas the St. Louis regional median energy burden, meaning the percentage of gross household income spent on energy bills, is just over 4%, while Black households have an average energy burden of 7.4%, and whereas as prices rise, risk of energy cost burden also grows. And whereas an increased utility rate will have a disproportionately negative impact on Black St. Louis households and further contribute to racial wealth and equity in the city. And whereas on April 1st, 2022, Spire, Missouri Incorporated filed for a $151.9 million rate increase, which is estimated to increase St. Louis area households' bills by 11.5% or $9.42 per month. And whereas Missouri Spire Incorporated was already granted a rate increase in December 2021, resulting in a $1.52 per month increase for consumers in Missouri East that yielded a 7.39% corporate profit. And whereas Missouri Spire Incorporated already has some of the highest monthly charges that consumers must pay for any gas of any gas is consumed at $22 per month for St. Louis and the eastern side of the state. Therefore it be resolved by the Board of Aldermen of the City of St. Louis that we pause in our deliberations to assert that the national gas rate case number GR-2022-0179 filed by Spire, Missouri, poses risk to St. Louis residents and consumers at a time when they have already faced increased rates of inflation and energy burden. Be it further resolved that the Board of Aldermen of the City of St. Louis urges the Missouri Public Service Commission to carefully consider this rate case in light of these circumstances and the harm that it will cause to St. Louisans. As I said, this was passed unanimously from the board. All of us who are elected officials in the city, have been seeing an increasing number of our constituents who are falling on financial hardship. We are seeing more people in our eviction courts. We are seeing more eviction notices get filed. We are seeing more people not be able to meet very basic expenses, whether it be for medicine, for housing, for food. This is not the time for this rate increase. So many people in our city already feel burdened. They already feel like they're living in the margins. And we don't want to see more folks evicted. We don't want to see more people on the streets when we're already struggling with capacity in a lot of our shelters. And we're struggling to stand up the shelters that we need to adequately prepare for the coming winter months. The last thing I'll say as sort of a point of personal privilege, this is not directly from the other members of the Board of Aldermen, but I think many would also agree. We do also just want to make note to Spire that one of the biggest complaints that we get from our constituents is the way you mess up our streets. Over and over and over again, I hear from constituents about problems with our streets. As an alderman, I have $300,000 per year for my ward capital budget. That has to go for every single capital expense in the ward that I represent. That has to pay for dumpsters, lighting, paving, any tree trimming, tree planting, any of those things. With $300,000 per year, I can afford to pave maybe 1 or 2 streets. That's it. I think most of my constituents would agree that before Spire comes asking for another rate increase again, they need to fix our city streets. They're causing so many issues on people's cars, getting flat tires, having additional maintenance that they're having to put on their automobiles. That is a tax that is being put onto people without their consent because of the impact that it is having on people's vehicles. So I urge the Public Service Commission to please vote no on this rate increase, and I also urge Spire to please come and fix the roads in St. Louis. Don't keep tearing up our streets and not coming and fixing it. And can I give you the resolution? Is that okay?
Yes, you may, and I will put that in. Our court reporter is with us virtually today, which is fine because we generally hang on to exhibits ourselves. So for the record, I will take that as Public Hearing Exhibit 1.
Sure. I have a question here.
Oh, for the record, John Kleiser, OPC. Has that been published somewhere, or is there a citation that I can find that easily if I want to?
The resolution? Yes. If you go on the St. Louis Board of Aldermen website, all of our resolutions are listed there. It's Resolution 117, and it was passed last Friday.
Thank you very much.
No problem.
And that actually leads into a question I have. I heard you said 117. I believe Ms. Barnes, unless I heard incorrectly, said 116. Are we talking about the same?
We are. I may be
Okay,
wrong.
so it's just one. Okay.
Yes.
I just want to be sure that I'm
Yes.
not looking at 2 different resolutions. Okay. Thank you so much.
No
Thank you for your
problem.
comments.
Thank you for your time.
Ethan Bradley.
Hello.
Would you please say and spell your name for the record?
Ethan Bradley, ETHAN BRADLEY.
And do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give at this local public hearing is the truth?
I do.
And what would you like to tell the commission?
Sure. So I said this in the Q&A, but I'll say it again. I volunteer a lot with homeless people in St. Louis, specifically in the winter at these places we call safe havens. It's where you go if you have nowhere else warm to go. So it'll be homeless people. It'll also be people who have just had their heat shut off, or people who've had their heat shut off for a while. And I volunteer. It's not my job. I'm at the front with a clipboard, and it's got like 33 spots. And those are all the cots we have in the building. And it'll be 10 p.m. and we're out of spots. And somebody will come in who has their heat shut off, and I have to tell them that we don't have a spot for them. And it's awful. And that's the position we're in. And for the commissioners, on our way in, there's pamphlets about what Spire does to help, with like programs that people can be a part of to help them pay their bills. There's a big what ways we can help sign at the front of the room those are really hard to get people in. Like you've heard from people tonight that this is the work they do. They work with people all day to try to get them like into these programs, and that's hard to begin with because there's a lot of red tape and a lot of hoops to jump through. And as the woman who was right there said earlier, you can just graduate from them, right? Or get kicked off, but that was the word Spire used, was graduate from them a year later, and you're stuck on a balanced billing program. And Spire's in a position of power to be able to like come up with more ways we can help. There could be a lot more things on that sign. People have talked about increasing the like spot where you qualify to 300% of the federal poverty level. That's a great idea. You could tie the programs that they have to whether or not you qualify for food stamps. You could tie it to whether or not you qualify for Medicaid. You could tie it to whether or not you've missed more than one utility bill. There's lots of great ideas that people in this room can help you come up with if you reach out to local organizations to come up with ways you can help. You're in a position of power. We need you to be able to do that. And the fact that they're not doing that, and instead they're asking us to raise our utility bills 11% this winter, which the Farmer's Almanac and anybody who predicts the weather says is going to be the coldest winter on record, where I'm going to have more people coming to see me at the Safe Haven who are not going to have spots. And that's not their fault. Like homelessness, like as a thing in America is not Spire's fault. The fact that we don't have enough beds isn't Spire's fault. But you're the utility company for St. Louis. You're part of this community. You taking this 11% increase is going to cause more people to not have a place to stay that's warm. And you're responsible for that. It's on your shoulders. And that's my position. If they want to make more money off of us, they can do the work to make sure that them making more money doesn't displace people. Until they do that work, don't give them any increase. Don't give them 9%. Don't give them 2%. They don't deserve it. Thanks.
Thank you for your comments. I have no questions. Anthony Green. Mr. Green, would you say and spell your name for the record?
Anthony Green, A-N-T-H-O-N-Y, Green, G-R-E-E-N.
And Mr. Green, do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give at this local public hearing is the truth?
Yes, it is.
And what would you like to tell the PSC tonight?
The first thing is I want to read something that I believe the Missouri Public Service Commission supplied us. One, the actual cost of the natural gas makes up 50 to 55% of your current total monthly natural gas bill. So my arithmetic tells me that if the actual cost of the natural gas makes up 50 to 55% of my bill, the other 45 to 50% is non-gas related. And that's where we are today with case number Gr-2022-0179. We need to know more specifically how the 45 to 50% non-gas cost is being spent. A lot of people have talked language, and you have used a lot of terms tonight in terms of semantics, and I want to kind of pull back some layers on the onions on that. Pull back some layers of the onion on that. One is the CEO of Spire has a fiduciary duty to make sure the money that it spends is spent in a way that's appropriate, that's relevant, and gets the most efficient use of that money. The CEO who earns whatever salary she makes has a fiduciary duty to do that day in and day out. And I think it just smacks of hubris to have done a rate increase last year, even if it was gas related, and then come to St. Louis and ask people to empty their wallets to finance corporate overhead. I learned now that Spire is a publicly traded company, which means possibly your CEO also receives executive compensation, including stock options, where she will receive reduced prices for stock for Spire. And if she can figure out a way to engineer Wall Street and the analysts to give positive ratings quarterly to Spire, she stands to profit well above just the compensation that she receives. So she has a vested interest in hopefully getting this passed, because Wall Street will look very favorably. Wall Street analysts will look very favorably at the fact that we, the citizens of St. Louis, have to pay, whether it's Spire West or Spire East, are going to have to pay these extra costs, and it will help to bridge this $152 million calculated gap that we're dealing with right now. And I'm all for, CEOs getting paid what they're worth, but at some point, there needs to be some due diligence at Spire. The Missouri Public Service Commission looked at a test year for y'all and decided that of the $152 million you wanted to spend, they said that really it should only be, I want to make sure I get the numbers right, it should only be 70.7 million. And that the other 81.2 million, that's less, that's the difference, that shouldn't even be included in the calculation. So I just want to take a pause on that. They look, y'all, and they pick the test year. You say based on your numbers and your accountants on the financial side, possibly cost accounts as well, we need to bridge a $152 million gap. They looked at a test year and said, we believe the numbers say 80 million. Or the numbers say 70 million, and 80 million is the difference between the 150 and the 70. The 80 million is the difference. That's a huge gap. $80 million is a lot of money. And I think as an organization, you need to do some due diligence about why you're spending that kind of money, whether it was litigation costs out of Washington, D.C. for the pipeline, whether it was settlement costs. I'm not exactly sure what the nature and extent and timing of all these extra costs were, because usually they're wrapped in very general terms, general accounting terms on the balance sheet or on the financial statements that are provided. But the CEO has access to that, and I really do think that it's time for a new precedent for the Missouri Public Service Commission. They need to decline this, or at least defer it to 1 year, and will you and your engineers, and your well-heeled engineers, your well-heeled accountants, and your well-heeled lawyers go back in the back office, and you really dig into the numbers, and you really find out why you overspent that much. According to an organization that regulates you, they say $80 million in there is fat, viscerated fat that doesn't need to be there, and they can't even justify it based on the test year that was chosen. I want to give more pause to that. $80 million, that's a lot of money. The CEO has to manage earnings, again, and so I understand, that she has to do what's in the best interest of the organization to increase profits and also increase the bottom line, which will increase her bottom line. But I'll be quite honest, I'm not worried about her bottom line. I'm worried about mine. We have to be honest here, very intellectually honest. Spire is a regulated monopoly. We've all played the game, formerly by the Parker brothers. We know that on 4 corners of the monopoly board, you have utilities, you have the railroad companies. That's one of the, kind of public goods, providing logistics and transportation. Other one is electricity. It needs to be regulated, right? And from my understanding, when I moved here, I had so many choices of gas to choose from. I had Spire, and then I had, it was just Spire. So you are a regulated monopoly. And from what I understand, you have inelastic demand, because regardless of what goes on, we're going to need the gas. So we are beholden to you, because we can't go to Scanner Energy and get gas from them, where you will have a free open market enterprise where you have to compete day in and day out for our services. See, that would cause economies of scale and scope. But we don't have that here. We have Spire, formerly Lph Gas. The other thing I want to talk about real quickly is just a comparison, because I like the term that someone used in calling Spire an empire, and not in a negative way, but empires have power, and absolute power tends to corrupt absolutely. So one thing I've noticed is I deal with Ameren. Also, when I move here, I get electricity. Ameren is one of the the only one I know about where I live. And so they have used at least the smart meter technology where now I can see my bill. It'll project my usage on the bill before a month end. If I go online, day 1, day 2, day 3, it will tell me how much I've used in kilowatt hours and how much I'm projected to use if I continue to use energy the same way I've done the last 10 days or whatever the actual billing period is for. So I don't have to wait for month end to find out or have a sense about how much my bill is going to be. Now, I don't know how much of my bill I've already paid for that feature, but I'm really concerned that an organization that's made $300 million last year seems to have a black box in the billing department where we don't know how much the bill is going to be until the bill drops. We don't, from my understanding, I've looked online, but maybe you have something. I haven't seen a feature similar to Ameren where midway in the month, I can look online and you can say, based on my gas usage for the first 15 days of my billing cycle, I should have a bill of this much if I tend to use the gas the same way or whatever. I'm not seeing that kind of predictive technology being put into my hands so that I can more effectively manage my billing that you're going to charge me, especially if these bills are going to go up disproportionately the way they are. I think if this kind of technology is available, you should put into our hands before a rate increase. I think it's disservice for you to increase the cost and then say, well, you're adults, figure it out. That's not going to work for me. I think that y'all should look into those types of technologies where we can see what our billing is going to look like before the bill drops. I think a lot of people, low income and otherwise, can be trained on that, can modify behavior on that, and not live in perpetual fear of when that bill comes in their mailbox, because they have no transparency to the actual CCCFs used until the bill comes. It's too late at that point. The gas has been used and there has been no interim information that Spire has supplied them to be able to course correct during the billing cycle. And that's what I like about Ameren. If I'm getting too fancy with my air conditioner, I can see in the going online, I can change that. I can start using more fans and less air conditioning. There's something I can do in the middle of the billing cycle, even at the beginning. But with Spire, if I go online, it will show me my last bill. It will not be any interim data that I can use to modify my consumption behavior. And I think you really need to look into that. You have plenty of industry partners and industry stakeholders. And again, I would encourage the CEO and the CFO to look into those things before rolling it out. But I really do think the Missouri Public Service Commission should decline this, because not forever. They have to go back and really look at this and look at what they're giving us. What tools and resources, aside from just assistance programs, are they giving us to navigate this new uncharted territory we're going into that's very inflationary driven? So I respect your business, your business challenge in terms of managing costs in an inflationary economy. But we have a personal economy on this side, and we need you to partner with us to give us some more robust resources to see what our consumption looks like before the bill drops. Because I think that will help, help us and also help you. We won't overwhelm and jam your customer service line because we have no transparency to the data. I think that's it for what I covered. Yeah, I think that's it. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your comments. Those are all the people that I had signed up to speak tonight. Is there anybody who didn't get a chance to sign up and realizes now that they would like to say something to the commission tonight? Yes, sir. Come on up to the mic. And would you please state and spell your name for the record?
My name, Robert Hannon, Hannon.
Mr. Hannon, do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give at this local public hearing is the truth?
Yes, I do, sir.
And what would you like to say to the commission this evening?
First, I'm an investor in your company. My money goes to purchase shares. I want a profitable company. I don't expect that the commission is going to file you into bankruptcy, but there needs to be possibly, a compromise between what maximum and minimum. Nothing has been cast in stone yet, but I pay the same bills as everyone else. I pay the same utilities. I have medical issues. I'm an insulin dependent, diabetic, using a Dexcom system, and it's necessary to keep me alive. I also need heat. I have compromised. My compromise, I've turned my heating bill down. I have turned my hot water off for the summer. I do not have running hot water as a means of compromise, but I am mandatory to pay my utility bills or get evicted. I am not on any commission, group, receiving support from any organization. I own my home. I'm responsible for it, including utilities. My money goes to investments. I own stocks. I own shares and receive dividends, not by bankrupt companies, not by companies that have been forced to tear up their pipes because somebody wants to complain. If you don't like the street, move. If you don't like the utility, shut your utility off. If you can't afford it, don't live here. I have been put here because of my job. I'm a retired federal person. I receive a set amount of money every month, and it has been reduced because of the federal government's decision to help everyone. Well, I don't have a complaint to say whether I like that or not. If I don't like eviction, move. If you don't like St. Louis, move. You're not going to get, face up, you're not going to get another utility company to give you another gas. What do you think? They're going to just come in and use the pipes? People have spoken of many things here. And realistically, face up. I can show you every bill I have paid to all the utilities right here, my checkbook that goes back many, many months. I can list every utility I've paid, electric, gas, water, and so on. I have compromised my house to stay there, to avoid eviction. I have compromised my health in order to stay here. Should I move? Because I can't afford it? Because I don't like Spire? Where will I go? Will the federal government help me relocate? I expect not to. I have gone from being middle class to lower portion of middle class category. I receive no assistance other than what I receive from my retirement money. Yet I have investments in much of the utilities in this area, including Spire. I expect to stay. What kills me? My property tax bill, not the Spire bill, not my water bill, my property tax that gives me nothing back. My money goes to pay for everything else for nothing that I receive because I make improvements to my house. I replace my windows, I put in insulation, I put a new roof on, and I make repairs. How does it help me? My Spire bill has gone down. So has my electric bill. So has my water bill. And I am still here. I own my house already 22 years, and yet I was relocated here for federal reasons to maintain my job, and I had no choice. Go or lose your position. I chose to come here. I chose to fix my house. I choose to cut down my utility usage. Questions, please ask.
I have no questions, but thank you for your comments.
Thank you, sir.
Is there anybody else who did not get an opportunity to comment who wanted to offer comments to the commission tonight? Sir.
Hi, Derek Weislater. I wanted to make a...
Would you spell your name for the record, please?
D-E-R-I-C is Derek. Weislater, W-I-S-L-E-D-E-R.
And Mr. Weislater, do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give at this public hearing is the truth?
Yes. Several people commented about that we need to look past Spire, past the corporate solution, and what I didn't hear, and so my brief comment was that I notice that the Missouri Public Service Commission, it's saying there that it's a independent commission, and I would imagine that the taxpayers pay for that commission, and part of the it seems to me that part of the solution would be that the state of Missouri should look into making that commission a part of the state, more a part of the state, more integrated with the state in the process of as someone had mentioned, dissolving Spire and moving from a corporate solution to a public solution. And many people are saying that it should be obvious. I know that the country has kind of gone the opposite direction over many decades in privatizing public services, public utilities. And but you know, we need to think about that, and so I wanted to put that out there as a comment. In the short term, please do say no to these rate increases that are not justified, and look into how we can start into a public solution and cut out the middleman and private profits, private corporate profits, and so on and so forth. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Is there anybody else who wanted to offer comments tonight? Well, it's been a long evening. I want to thank everybody for showing up and offering their comments to the commission. This is the only way the commission gets a window into the communities and how utility requests affect them. So I appreciate everybody taking time out of their day to come and express their comments to the commission. Now, if anyone has additional comments that they wanted to offer, or they get home and they have a friend who said, I wish I could have gone to that, but was unable to, you can offer additional comments, written comments, by going through the Missouri Public Service Commission's website. There's a spot where you can see to offer comments. When you're doing that, be sure and know the case number that you are commenting on. This one is Gr-2022-0179. Additionally, public counsel, who is sat here at this table right here, you can also contact the Office of the Public Counsel if you have comments, or someone you know has comments that they would like to make to the commission. Do any of the commissioners have any closing comments that they would like to make?
Judge, this is Commissioner Holzman.
Go ahead, Commissioner.
Thank you. I just want to thank everybody for participating in this very robust hearing. It does matter. You know, we hung in there all the way to the end, and appreciate everybody stepping forward and sharing their thoughts. I want to thank you, Judge, for managing the hearing and for getting us through all the comments tonight. And just very appreciative. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, Commissioner Holzman. To the parties, is there anything else the commission needs to take up tonight? Spire?
No, just to thank everyone who came. We really appreciate your participation and your comments. We look forward to serving you. Thanks.
Public counsel?
Very, very briefly, the OPC anticipates that it might want to use some of the testimony that was given here today in preparation of surrebuttal. I want to make sure that the transcript would be filed before the due date for surrebuttal and request expedited treatment as necessary to achieve that end.
I can't grant or deny that right now, but I will certainly take your concerns to the commission. Obviously, the transcript will be made publicly available when it's available.
Thank you.
Staff?
Nothing to add, just thank you all for coming in and speaking to us tonight.
And anything from our lone intervener?
Nothing additional, thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, again, I'd like to thank everybody for being here tonight. I've learned a great deal tonight. With that, this hearing is now adjourned, and we will go off the record. Everybody drive home safe.
Thank you, Judge.
Thank you, Judge.